It's 5:35 p.m. I would like to call our fourth budget meeting to order. Mr. Parker, could you please call the roll?
Yes. Ms. Daniels,
Here.
Ms. Green,
Present.
Mr. Mattson, Mr. Majors,
Here.
Ms. Rawls,
Present.
Mr. Rodriguez,
Present.
and Ms. Bowers.
Present, thank you. I will now defer to our Budget and Finance Committee Chair, Vice President Green.
Thank you, President Bowers. Tonight, for our budget meeting, we will be meeting with the Bureau of Planning, the Office of the City Treasurer, Office of the City Controller, Bureau of Licensing, Taxation, and Central Support, Bureau of Business Development and Business and Resource Development, Department of Building and Housing, General Expenses and Transfers, and Public Safety Goal Statement. We will also be speaking with Ms. Rebecca Vollmer, and we'll allow her to go first. That way she doesn't have to sit through our entire meeting. I know a couple of council members last week asked for her to be here for this meeting. So I guess we can get it started off with you if you don't mind. Thank you for being here tonight. If you could just give us an overview of what your department does, some of the things that you guys have done this year, as well as some of your goals for this upcoming year, and then we'll just open it up for some questions.
Yes, so my department is what I do is try to get grant money for the city for any projects that we have, any priorities for administration, just trying to find money that we can bring down to put into projects and do it as well as we can, because we have to have match funding. So we always try to sort of match grants to grants. So anything that comes down the pike, I try to I look into and I try to understand, and is it something that we can do? Is it works? Makes sense? Is it a project that is the high priority for the city? And also, is it a grant that is, maybe it's a grant that there are 5 across the entire country. So it's not, necessarily like the best. Everybody thinks that grant money is free, and it's not. So that's kind of it. We're just trying to like get the most that we absolutely can. And this last 24 months just unprecedented. It's crazy. There's so much federal money. We're trying so hard to like make sure that we get our share. But even after that, once we bring money in, we have to make sure that we can actually administer it properly and manage it properly. So I guess my priorities have been, let's get as much as we can because Harrisburg deserves it. The residents and the citizens of Harrisburg, we deserve it. But let's make sure that once it's in the door, we can actually make it, work. We can make it work properly. We won't, be in advance of any requirements or. It's actually really difficult to manage grants. So we're just trying to make sure that, yes, we want to bring the dollars in the door, but we also want to make sure that we're working with them. Everything that's required. Agencies.
Well, thank you very much for that overview. I'd like to say, but don't sell yourself short. You have done an amazing job bringing in millions upon millions of dollars to the city of Harrisburg and its citizens. So thank you for all that you do. We very much appreciate the work that you do and understand that it's more than just getting the grants, that it's, like you said, also administering the grants, making sure the paperwork is kept and tracked, making sure the money is spent properly and all that is tracked and that any paperwork afterwards, after you get the money and after you spend it, that all of that is submitted to making sure we're eligible to continue to get grants. So thank you. I know you have a very small department. In the budget, there is room for expansion. I believe there's another position looking to be added to your department that hopefully will be a much value to your department and to you. So thank you for your long nights and your tireless efforts. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues for some of their questions or comments. I will start all the way to my far right with Councilman Rodriguez. I believe you were one of the ones that had some questions last time.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair Green. Thank you, Ms. Vollmer, for joining us this evening. Just wanted to see where we were from when we met around February-ish, give or take around there, around last budget time. Just wanted to see, what did you feel you needed to operate more efficiently in your department? I know we were just kind of bouncing it back and forth about perhaps getting you some help or an assistant or someone in that kind of field. Do you feel that help is soon to come for you, or you do currently have it? And what will you need to operate more efficiently?
Thank you. And also, I'm so sorry, I should have started with thanking you guys for having me. Yeah, I definitely, there's been lots of efforts.
I'm sorry, could you speak in the mic a bit? It's hard to hear you.
Is that better?
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry. Okay. Thank you so much for having me here,
Thank you for being here.
guys, and thank you for letting me be here. Yes, I feel like the administration is trying really, really hard to get some support, and it's a difficult thing to sort of support the grant position, because it's really strange work. It's kind of like you have to be like a really big thinker and also very detail oriented and very kind of like, meticulous and whatever. So the administration has been trying very hard to put some support positions in place, and they are doing that, and so I'm very confident and excited about that going forward. That there'll be some folks who know about grants and understand grants and sort of think about how grants work and how grants work in terms of the priorities of the administration. How do you get this money from all these different agencies, which each one of them has its own priorities? How do you kind of bring that all into a financial strategy? So yeah, so I feel very good about that's going to happen.
Well, thank you for that, and definitely thank you for the hard work thus far. As Chair Green was saying, bringing in the pots of money that you were able to, in success, to get through grant funding. So definitely appreciate for that. Do you feel as though there'll be any issue with compliance after the awards have happened, or upkeeping of any records?
I'm not worried about that, but I am very aware of that. Like,
Okay.
vigilance is incredibly important, because that is like getting the grant. It sounds great and whatever, we all get to celebrate and it sounds great, but actually that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Mhm.
That whole other giant iceberg underneath it.
That again, yeah.
That's what's important. So we have to, we have to make sure that we're careful about that and do all those things correctly. And honestly, that's where the adding some manpower would be so helpful.
Well, the work you do is definitely appreciated, and a city that's just starting to come out of financial burden, it's really important the work you do. So although you may feel it's tedious and minuscule, I think it's large what you do and amazing. And the more bodies helping you right beside you, I feel the more we can go after. So I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. And no further questions, Chair Green. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels, any questions or comments?
No, do you know off of the top of your head about how many millions you've brought in this year for the city?
It's really not me. It's everybody. It's the whole city. It's everybody. So the big one was the 13 grant for the parks. Is that on? We're going back and forth with PCCD now for the GVIP and the LLES for another I don't know, 3 or 4 million. Um, we might get money for the Hall Manor Pools project, which would be about 4 million. You never really know because you just don't know until they tell you. I don't know. So I guess it's probably been that plus some stuff through, which we only got because of the Greenbelt folks and all the volunteers that are working on the Greenbelt. That was a couple million, so probably 15, 18 million. But it's not like no grant is ever one person, it's always everybody. And the projects are, we only get grants if we have projects that actually are real and work. And we can put something forward to a granting agency and we can say, this is a real project and it's the participation of all the community. And we understand the budget and we understand, the scope. And so it's always everybody. So I guess I would say, I think it's about 18 million, maybe a little more, but it's not me, it's everybody. It's everybody else.
Thank you. Councilman Majors.
Thank you, and thank you, Ms. Vollmer, for being here. With respect to the Bureau of Grants budget, there is a proposal for $5,000 up for professional services in this year's budget. Can you just speak to what that would be covering?
Yeah, because I don't.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. I
no,
just,
no problem. I can,
I've never actually used my budget before. My
Okay.
budget's only ever been about $5,000 and I've never used it. And if we were to need some consulting services to help, I think in particular for the RAC piece, we've got a couple of them now. One for the city, one is for Gary Gilliam's work, and one is from Kevin Baird. And if it turns out that we need to help either one of those two groups create their business plan, we might need to use some consulting services for that. So I think that's what that would be for. Otherwise, I've never used that line item and I probably won't this year either.
okay. And like everyone's saying, we're looking to fund a grant assistant for your office this year. So in terms of the grants that do come into the city, are you usually the only person that looks for the grant opportunities, or are other departments working with you to look and seek out other grant opportunities that may be out there?
Yeah, so that's actually a fantastic question. Everyone is always sending stuff my way and it's terrific. And I've been here, I guess it'll be about 5 years in February. So I've kind of been through the cycles enough that I know the general stuff. But it's always awesome and wonderful to have people say, hey, there's this, have you ever looked at this before? And that comes from all different directions, including from outside of the city, from just friends I know and folks who work at nonprofits. So I would love to have the assistance of another grant person in the office, in my office, that he or she and I could collaborate and just leverage, and I hate that term, but like actually leverage everything we know and go out and get more money. Like that's kind of the whole idea, is the bottleneck is that there's only one of me and can't do it all.
Right. No.
Sorry.
Sorry. So to your point, like I get information from everywhere.
I'm sorry to
Folks that
interrupt.
I've seen
I'm
before,
really
but-
struggling to hear you. Do you mind speaking up more?
If you could try to bring the mic a little bit closer to you.
Yeah.
I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
Just give us a quick test.
No.
Yeah, make sure it's on, and then, yep, can you just say something into the mic?
Is that better?
You just might need to, yeah, it's on. I think you just might need to project just a little bit
Okay.
more.
Sorry. I'm so sorry. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, so I get input from everywhere and I take everything into consideration and I look at everything. And it just, the idea of having an assistant would be amazing because then we could just process that much more.
Okay, so right, so people would bring it into you. You do a lot of the vetting to determine if that's something we could go
Yeah.
for. So I think I would agree. I think most of us would tend to agree having another set of eyes, someone else to assist would be helpful. I think, well, I'll defer. I think my colleagues may have other questions that I don't want to take up any questions that they may already ask. So, but thank you for being here. Thanks, Chair Green.
Thank you. President Bowers, any questions or comments?
No, thank you. The one question that I did submit was just related to the assistant grant, the grant writer assistant position, that has been added to the budget. And Ms. Kelly answered that, for me. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Madsen, any comments or questions?
No questions at the moment. Apologize for my tardiness. But thank you.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Rawls, comments or
Thank-
questions?
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Ballmer, and thank you for coming tonight. It's always a pleasure to hear from you and the great work that you do. I don't have any questions. My two questions were answered about how much money we possibly brought in this year, or what was the most at least, and about the assistant. But I agree, like maybe a second pair of eyes or whatever helps you out, bring more money in and still keeps you mentally focused and well. I think that's a big part in everyone's job is our mental health and, making sure we're not overworked. So if that's something you think you need, I think we would be more than ecstatic to make sure you have some extra help. But thank you and continue the great job you're doing. That's it for me.
Thank you. I believe that's all the questions or comments for you, Ms. Ballmer. Thank you again for all of the hard work that you do. Your work is much appreciated in the city.
So can I just say, I'm so sorry.
Feel free to add
Um,
anything else.
Oh, we really are in an unprecedented time of federal money being out there and being available. And I think that is the whole reason to have another person in the grants office, is that somebody has got to be out there looking at the big picture and just going for it. And it's tough. I mean, federal grants are not easy, but there's a huge opportunity, and I mean, Harrisburg deserves it. We have got to go after it. And anyway, that's kind of where my brain is. Let's go get it. And obviously, once it comes in, we've got to administrate it properly. But let's go get it.
Thank you. I think we all can agree with you on that. We will move on to the next item in committee business, which will be the Bureau of Planning. Good evening, Director Knight. If you could give us an overview of your department, what you guys do, some of your accomplishments this year and your goals for the upcoming year.
Sure. So Jeffrey Knight, I'm the Director of the Planning Bureau. Our department is really multifaceted. We kind of engage with a lot of the other departments throughout the city on a regular basis, including Ms. Vollmer on doing, letters of plan consistency for grants, whether those are city projects or outside projects. And we work extensively with the community. We review most of the building permits that come through the city, at least anything that involves zoning, historic district, or floodplain review criteria, as well as reviewing all the mercantile permits that come through the city. In addition, we handle all historic district issues, from violations to responding to information requests to doing presentations. For example, I was just at HHA last Monday to do a presentation to the community. And then our monthly HARB meetings, whereby residents or property owners can file applications for projects that might not be administratively approvable through our design guidelines. In addition to that, we handle floodplain issues, including permits filed for that, again, addressing inquiries from the public, from property owners, from developers about how to do floodplain compliant development. And then the big thing we do really is the zoning and land development issues. The zoning issues, are multifaceted, anything from uses to dimensional criteria to just interpretations of the zoning code. And then land development is, as you all know, lot consolidation, subdivisions, and actual construction of new buildings and or substantial conversions of existing buildings, such as when offices are being converted to residential units. We also work pretty closely with our GIS administrator, and sometimes when we have the staff to be able to do so, do provide GIS services to other departments if necessary. So we're really kind of doing a little bit of everything out in the city, and we're, because of all that, the big need from my department is staff more so than anything else. We take in a lot of stuff from other people, so it's not like we need oversized plotters to create giant maps or anything like that. We're really a lot of times a customer service branch of the city, and so having people that are able to answer phones, that are able to provide guidance on a number of different topics, and then are able to staff our after hours meetings is really the big need from the Planning Bureau's perspective. The other big cost that you'll see in our budget is related to the zoning hearing board meetings. So that's largely three components. One is the legal ad we're required to post in the Patriot News every month. The other is a court stenographer who attends because they're quasi judicial meetings, and decisions of the zoning hearing board are appealed to the Court of Common Pleas. And then additionally, because it is quasi judicial, the board has a solicitor themselves that's separate from the city's law bureau. So those are the three costs inherent in our zoning hearing board review process. But otherwise, most of what you see in our budget is staff. And then we do have some other assorted allocations for office furniture, supplies, things of that nature, and you'll see that we have a line item of $25,000 for consulting. So that's really kind of could be used for a number of different things, but really the two things on our radar right now is a follow-up. Is basically follow-ups to the comprehensive plan, and that includes both a zoning code update as well as possibly moving into small area plans. I think with like an amount of $25,000, you're doing one or the other. And if you're looking at something like the small area plans, you're probably developing a template process by which you can go to different neighborhoods and follow a kind of set number of steps to begin the engagement process with them. And a lot of that would presumably occur then with bureau staff.
Thank you very much. Glad to hear some of the things you're working on in 2023. I would love to see an update to the zoning code, especially some mixed use throughout the neighborhoods. But that's something we could talk about a little later. If you wouldn't mind reading over the questions that were asked by council and those responses. If you don't have a copy, I can give you mine.
Yeah, I don't have a copy of that off the top of my head. So the first question is, when do you intend to fill the deputy director for the planning zoning vacancy? What quarter of 2023? So that's the priority right now, because of the staff movement that basically happened in 2022 with the historic preservation specialist stepping down, then a focus on bringing in an urban planner, and then our deputy director has stepped down. It's been a bit of a moving target, but the priority is getting the deputy director in because they do handle the planning commission, zoning hearing board, and city council meetings. And the zoning and land development inquiries that come into the department are a substantial portion of what we do. We've had the position posted for a couple months. I think it's just been very slow this year for some reason. I don't know if that's the overall struggle in finding candidates. That's not just something governments are working with, and private sector is working with that too. Or maybe it's because we're not at the end of a semester cycle when you tend to get more people coming out of, grad school, things like that, that might be looking for jobs. So, it's up there right now. We're hoping to fill that as soon as possible. I would anticipate, something like that, hopefully by the end of January. The next step is when do we intend to fill the historic preservation specialist? That's similar. So again, our focus right now is on the deputy planning director position, but we would look to go to the historic preservation specialist shortly thereafter, and it's something we can probably post kind of now and start to build a candidate pool for. For the most part, I've been able to handle that myself right now. And we haven't had any in December, so it's been a little slower, and I'm able to get ahead for January. But that's kind of another one that's as soon as we can. What is the Bureau's diversity complement? Currently, there's myself and our urban planner one, Catherine Carini, who are in the department at the moment. And are any of our employees bilingual? Yes, our urban planner one is conversationally fluent in Spanish. So she's been very helpful in addressing inquiries that come in translating aspects of the zoning code to the public. In fact, one of the big projects I've got her working on right now is converting the zoning code into Spanish, so that we're able to put that up on the website alongside, because we are seeing more and more Spanish speaking members of the public coming in. And so that's something that we think will help enhance our outreach to the public and maybe make things a little bit easier communication wise between Bureau staff and the public.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues for any questions or comments. I'm going to start to my right here with Councilwoman Ross.
Thank you, and good evening, Mr. Knight. Thank you for coming. I did have a few questions.
Sure.
My first question was, and it's not a large amount, but I was just wondering for tuition and training. I know last year it was 6,000, this year it's 4,000, so it's less, but I was wondering what did you use for tuition and training last year? And what will you be doing this year?
So some of the tuition and training we've used this year has been for our new urban planner one is getting her up to speed on GIS. It's something that, we like to have, even though we have a GIS administrator in the city, they're working with a bunch of different departments, and it helps to have some operational redundancy. So we're trying to bring her up to speed. Additionally, as part of our certified local government program with PHMC, that's basically kind of certifies us as a historic district community, for lack of a better word. One of the requirements is that our board members take annual training at a certain number of hours. So that money helps to go pay for that. Those are volunteer positions. And so we want to make sure that, they're not having to put money out of pocket to satisfy a requirement of the city.
Thank you. My other question was, does your department, I know you're looking to, you're trying to find a new staff member, deputy director. So right now I know it's a little crunched, but do you have you in the past, or do you look to do any community outreach to, I think, sometimes help the residents understand what they need before they come in front of the planning board, or just give a few trainings or tips on anything?
Yeah, I'm always willing to help, I guess, demystify the planning bureau speak as much as possible. One of the reasons I was, at the HHA presentation was to be able to answer those questions. And so that's out there. They put that on their Facebook Live and everything. One of the things I'm looking to do while we have some downtime here during the holidays for next year is to enhance our applications a little bit more, because we do get a lot of questions about, well, what do I need? And there's some back and forth sometimes with submitting documentation, sending it back, resubmitting it. And sometimes that can be something that even has a cost to the applicants, like notification letters that are required for our zoning relief applications. So making sure our applications come with or have the instructions sheets that they do have kind of filled out a little bit more and have a little bit more specificity to them is something we're looking to do. Another thing that I know our previous historic preservation specialist did online was put up a historic preservation blog post that was linked through our website. So we could do something like that for zoning and land development issues as well.
I think that would be great. I would look forward to seeing that. Thank you so much. That's all I have.
Thank you very much, Councilman Mattson.
Most of my questions got answered, so I don't have any at the moment. Glad to hear that the comprehensive plan is being implemented. And there's discussions of it. That was largely what a lot of my questions were about, but then you answered those and then the staff compliments. Oh, I got.
Thank you, President Bowers.
Thank you. I just, thanks for responding to the questions that were submitted. I did have a follow-up regarding the salary increase for the deputy director.
Mhm.
Do you feel that that increase is sufficient and will possibly yield a decent applicant pool?
Yeah, that's my hope is that I think it was like a 8% increase or something like that on what the previous level was. So that's a significant amount. I've also been working with the finance department to find ways to maybe even increase that a little bit more for 2023. And you know, I think it's always hard to tell whether the recruitment process is impacted by that because you don't hear from people that don't submit. So my hope is that between what's budgeted in here and some possibilities we may have for early next year, when the new budget numbers come in, I guess in the first quarter, that we'll be able to increase that. I guess it all depends on when we're able to bring somebody in.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Majors.
Thank you. With respect to your the professional services line, there's a significant increase in the budgeted number there. Does you just speak to the need for the increase, and are you anticipating significant legal costs for next year?
So the main increase there is due to the zoning hearing board solicitor. Last year was the first full year that we had the current zoning hearing board solicitor. Before that, we were working with a different one, and then there was a transition period. And now we've had a full year's worth of work under the current solicitor. And I think the total for this year was about $94,000. So $100,000 seems like it's right about on the mark for what the cost would be. It's always tough to tell. It's like determining how much you outlay for snow removal, you know, kind of in the current year. We can't tell how many or how complex the zoning relief applications may come in next year, but I think that numbers compared to what we saw this year is a pretty good approximation of what we should expect to, you know, disperse.
Okay, and then I guess same thing, just real quick on the advertising budget, same thing.
Yeah, same thing. I think the advertising budget is a little bit of a bump up, and that was due to you know, with the consulting line item, if we're going to be doing outreach, whether it's the zoning code, whether it's small area plans, we're going to want to be advertising that. And so we just increased the budget a little bit to prepare for that.
Okay, and then lastly, on the historic preservation specialist, the current budget has in the complement, it looks like we're going to be funding that at half a year. It looks like the start date listed in the documents provided to us would be 7/1/2023. I know you had mentioned wanting to start advertising sooner, so I just want to make sure that that's good, because I guess at some point we'd have to do a reallocation should you want to advertise for that position sooner.
Yeah, so that I think might also be because we may be looking for grants, historic preservation grants to help partially fund that position. So for example, when I first started with the city, half of my salary was from a CLG grant through PHMC to basically implement the city's historic district design guidelines and regulations. So we may, I think, be going after something similar to that.
Okay, Thank you. No further questions. Thanks, Chair Green.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels.
They were already asked.
Thank you. And Councilman Rodriguez.
Yes, echoing, they were pretty much already answered, but thank you for being here, Jeff.
Welcome.
Seeing no more questions or comments from my colleagues, I don't have any questions for you. I would like to say thank you for your hard work, for the many late nights, for filling the roles when they're unfilled, because I know many times you've played many roles in the department. So thank you for your dedication to the city. We appreciate it.
All right. Thank you. I love doing my job, so no problem.
All right, we will continue to move on with our agenda and committee business. There will be a change. So next will be the office of the city treasurer. But then following that will be the public safety goals, and we'll be speaking to the community service division. So they don't have to wait till the end of the agenda. So we will start with the office of the city treasurer. Good evening. Thank you for
evening.
being here
Nice to-
tonight. Nice to see you as well. If you could just, for the benefit of public, go over what your office does, some of the things you've accomplished this year, some of your goals for next year, and then any other information you want to give us before we open it up for questions.
That'd be great. Thank you. Well, obviously, well, not obviously, we're Treasury, so we control the funds of the city. Basically, we collect all the funds, we deposit it, we invest it, and we approve expenditures. So it's a big job and it's an important job in the city. Our goals, and it's been our goal for forever, is to have central treasury collection. What that means is that all money should come directly to Treasury. This is best practices. This is where the controls are for cash. This is the way it should be. Unfortunately, we currently have money going all over the place, but we're working on it, and hopefully we can work with administration to get that closer together. And we do see that hopefully happening with the advent of new software. Once that's installed, we're working for central Treasury. The only other thing I would like to mention is we are an independent office. We're independent, we are in a system of checks and balances. Treasury, controller, our checks on the administration. And I don't know if anyone was able to read the memo I wrote, but as I've mentioned in past years, I believe that our budget is between Treasury and City Council. It should not be interfered with by administration, which actually happens every year, which happened again this year. And I just wanted to point out, I'd like you to reinstitute our original budget. I wanted to point out something directly from the city code that I think is relevant tonight. This is section 2105-4. It's under the city treasurer, it's staff and budget control. And the last line is really, it's not that long, you can read it, but the last line I think is what's important. It says the treasurer may fix and determine the compensation to be paid to employees assigned to the office. Here's the important part. And such determination shall not be subject to the approval of any other official. And the reason I point this out is because I assigned our salaries, administration reduced one of our deputy treasurer, who has 17 years of experience, very hardworking, has more institutional knowledge than most people in this building, and is real value. And so, it's sort of an affront to us to have the administration reduce that. They did not change anything else in our budget, so I'm very happy with that, and I appreciate that. And I think it's a really important point to note who's really in control here. Are we going to go by the laws as enacted by City Council? And I think City Council has a real chance to do that, as not allow the administration to just ignore what the actual city code says. Thank you.
Thank you, Treasurer Miller. If you would be able to answer some of the questions, I know we did send out a couple of questions beforehand. If you could
that's right,
just
that's right.
answer those for us.
I think both of the first two are, when are we hiring folks? As soon as possible. And, unfortunately, that's a process. So we have to advertise internally first. Then if somebody goes for that job, we have to interview them, et cetera, and see if they're qualified. If that doesn't work, we go externally. So it may take a while. We have to work with human resources. So I will say in the past, these have been time-consuming processes. Oh, the next question. Oh, what is our diversity complement? I'm confused about that one. I would say we're 100% diverse. We've got gays, Latino, we've got women. We unfortunately, the last hire we had was an African-American female, but she didn't stay that long, so we have no African-Americans. But we have 0 straight white men, so I'd say we're 100% diverse. That's important. Are any employees bilingual? Yes, and that's very important for us. We do have to interface with Spanish-speaking people, and we really like to hire people that are bilingual, and I think we have 2 now. So. That it.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to start by opening up to my colleagues for any comments or questions. I will start to my far right with Councilwoman Ross.
Thank you. Oh, good evening. Thank you for being here tonight. I know maybe administration can answer this question. I just wondered why the deputy treasurer's why it was reduced, why the salary was reduced. Just
So that would be,
no, I don't.
that would
not
be
sure.
for the mayor or the business administrator.
Okay.
But I will note that section 2-105.4 is one very long sentence. That I don't know is 14 or 15 lines long. It begins with provisions shall be made in the budget for the adequate staff to enable the treasurer to perform the duties assigned to the office. That's the first sentence. So the treasurer doesn't set the budget, the mayor does, and according to the optional 3rd class city code, that council passes the budget. And our budget is broken into 4 main category sections. One of them is personnel. I have no disagreement that the treasurer has the authority in the same sentence to set their things, but within the personnel line item that is approved by the council. So all of those pieces of law read together go together, right? As there is adequate personnel money put into the budget approved by the council, whether, increases have certain restrictions, decreases have certain restrictions. But then with that personnel money, it is for the treasurer to set with what has been the appropriation, the salaries for their non-collective bargaining employees. But it's within that and with this and complying with the city's other policies is what this long sentence says. So this goes to, basically the offices of the city government working together, right? That's what it goes to. It's a balancing act. But that's been the law since 1974. It hasn't changed.
Thank you for that clarification.
Well, I just want to add, that's one opinion. I think if you just read the sentence, it's so clear, and the word is shall
Okay.
not be overruled by any other officer. I mean,
But
it's
it's also-
sort of the type of thing we've been running into with.
It
with
also
this
says
in general.
personnel shall be assigned to the city treasurer by the department administration, subject to treasurer's approval and exclusive direction and control, and subject to the general personnel policies of the city.
We're not disputing any of that.
And I'm not disputing with it, but
Okay.
but you have to read the
I
whole,
just wanna
the
say
whole
there's-
thing together.
Exactly.
So you have to have an appropriation from city council and a budget proposed by the mayor.
Exactly. Our budget is put city council. and
There's
treasurer.
only one budget, the city budget, and it's proposed by the mayor as a matter of state law.
Parliamentary inquiry now. Does the 3rd class city code trump the ordinance as it stands as we adopt the new city code?
Yes, it's what gives us authority to pass laws in the first place.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, I don't know if maybe Dan, Mr. Hartman or someone I would just want to know why it was reduced. I understand
And
I'd like to
the-
add one thing about that, if I
Mhm.
may. And I don't know if the council is aware of that. And the truth is, we're getting a tremendous bargain with the staff of the treasury because we collect school district taxes, real estate taxes for school districts. And in doing so, they compensate us. And they compensate us 1/3 of what our costs are. So if we see a salary of, I'll make it easy, $90,000, the city's cost is actually $60,000 because $30,000 is being reimbursed to us by the school district. So in a sense, this treasury staff are a tremendous bargain.
Thank you. That was the only question I had.
Ms. Kelly, did you have a comment?
Well, I can address the question that you have
Yeah.
to a degree. I don't know that I'm inside the mind of the mayor or
No.
Dan Hartman. But I know one of the things that the mayor has attempted to do is have equity among positions.
Okay.
And the closest equity to the treasurer would be the controllers, the assistant controller. And so I think there was an effort to try to bring those salaries close to one another, where the controller was making significantly less over the past several years. So I do think that's some of the logic, but
Okay, because they have the same amount of staff within their office, or some, is that why, is that,
no, she would have more staff,
okay,
but he may have equal responsibilities. You know, he has significant responsibilities with a tiny staff. He only has one staff.
okay. I didn't know too if it was the hours. I know you're not open 5 days a week, I think 2. And yes, the
Right.
treasurer's is 2 days a week
We are
until 2:00. So it's not a full,
2:30, I guess.
2:30, okay. So it's not a full work week.
Oh, no, they work full work.
Not in front of the window though. Not at the window.
We're not at the window.
Mhm.
I do want to add, I can add in on this. I was the controller and Bill Lineberger, the deputy controller, great guy. But I would say the responsibility difference between the controller's office and the treasurer's, huge difference. There's a lot of money, a lot of transactions, a lot of activity, and a lot more staff. So they're really not equivalent.
Thank you. I don't have anything further.
Thank you. Councilman Mattson?
Yeah, so in the past, I know your office has been a big proponent of annual billing. What's the status update with that legislation? I know there were some conversations.
Well, I think that, it is one of my goals. Annual billing would be a tremendous win-win-win for the city. It would be for poor city residents. It would be a win for the regular city residents, the taxpayers, and it would be a win for the city. It would make things so much more efficient in our billing process. It would collect more money for us. It would take care of some of our big receivable problems. I've sort of beat my head against the wall on 4 or 5 years on that. And my latest strategy, the mayor keeps telling me now, she says, we've got to get that because they need the money. And I sort of feel like, okay, once the mayor realizes that there's money, there's money and savings, tremendous savings, cost savings too, in this. And once the mayor gets behind it and pushes it, I'm ready to go as hard as I can. But, after 4 years knocking your head against the wall, not getting very far, it's been pretty, I'm just going to wait my time till this issue comes up and is seen as a necessary development.
And in the budget that you've, I want to say proposed or that you're dealing with right now, does the staff capacity look towards doing other collections enforcement, or are we firing at all cylinders? I guess what I'm asking is, there's some collection laws that simply aren't being enforced as much as we could because it's just a lack of bandwidth.
When you say collection laws, you mean liens or what do you? I'm not
So
sure.
monies that are due to the city per right or
The
law.
billing, you mean the trash or?
Or trash collection. I know that's part of the logic behind the annual billing is that there's a lot of outstanding.
Yes,
people
that's
that are
our
in
big
arrears.
receivable. That's,
Okay, is there any other ones, I guess?
yeah, our real estate tax are not a problem. Because they're collected, people pay them. They know they're going to have to pay them. And that's the whole idea behind the annual billing. Other things are paid as they come in. So we don't have a lot of other, you don't get your permit if you don't pay it. That
Right.
type of thing.
Okay.
Enforcement is an executive function. There are smaller things, much smaller than utilities that are systematically problematic for departments because there's not what there used to be a bureau that was pretty much dedicated to dealing with receivables and going after the money. That department was eliminated during the receivership transition, and it's never been restored. So there are things like the money that goes into the foreclosure registry when banks refuse to pay the money. There are some demo liens and things like that, which are complicated because the property is less valuable because the building was torn down. You know, how do you enforce these things? And there are those type of lien situations. There are some liens for police and firework, but there's not really an enforcement mechanism that's in place. But that's setting priorities. The big number is the trash bill. Those are, you know, in terms of the overall, if you have $110 million budget projected for revenues, everything in fairly relatively small, but still at some point need to be addressed in a more adequate way.
Final question is regarding the intergovernmental agreements with trash collection. Does your office have any comments on that? Do you think is that the logistics of collecting the monies from Steelton and some of the surrounding municipalities?
Well, I would like to, that's a good question because I do want to point out that we collect the money from Pembroke. And it's so ironic because the way Pembroke collects their trash is an annual billing method. So people, when they pay their real estate taxes, they pay their trash bills, that money goes all to Pembroke. We bill Pembroke 4 times a year. One bill, they send us the money. Tremendously efficient. It's the way we'd like to see things. You know, Steel is a little different because we do collect that on a quarterly basis, and that's where we are actually sending out the invoices and then receiving the payments. It's similar to what we do here, although we do it monthly here. So it's a lot more work. It's not as efficient. It's not, you know, I don't know if that answers any of your questions, if we have any issues, but
Yeah, largely. Okay. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. President Bowers, any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for responding to the questions that were submitted. Are you at liberty to share the cashier job description? Since it's a new role. Okay,
We did not fill the position when it became vacant years ago. And now, due to the volume of work, we decided that we need to reinstate that position. So, basically what it is.
okay,
So HR would have a job description.
thank you.
Yeah, well, the job description has been modified and was submitted, went to a labor management meeting. And I believe that it was reviewed by the union. I haven't talked to Johnny about this yet, but obviously that everything is well.
Okay, thank you. And then my other question is just related to the deputy treasurer's salary. I'm just curious to know how the increase was determined. Did you perform a performance evaluation, or was the deputy treasurer have her duties changed? I'm just curious because we don't have anything in writing.
no, I did not perform. I mean, not a written one. We know that her salary has not really kept up, and as we all know, salaries have gone up a lot lately. I think it's not much more than inflation, the increase, and we did want to. So we did a salary that we thought was appropriate for her knowledge and abilities. I mean, we've worked closely together for like 6 years now. Well, actually longer than that, since I was a controller. So I know her abilities, I know her drive and her professionalism. That's how we came up with that salary.
Okay, thank you.
You know, we've tried to do that in the past. It really doesn't work, you know, because it's stuff that's boilerplate. We've done it before with administration in past years.
You're referring to a performance
Yeah,
evaluation?
we've done performance evaluations, and they're boilerplate. It's sort of like trying to do one size fits all. And in this situation, I mean, so as a professional with knowledge and experience and information that's, you know, relevant to the city. So it doesn't always work out well on some type of boilerplate performance evaluation.
And I'm not discrediting her abilities or anything that she brings to the city. I was just curious to learn how the increase was determined. Oh, yes. Now, I know that you've stated previously when you've attended council meetings that if your office, I think it was just maybe the clerk position, if that was filled, that you would open the office back 5 days a week, full-time hours. Is that something that is still being considered?
We definitely want to have the office open full-time. So, yeah, as soon as we hire somebody.
For both the accounting clerk and the cashier, now that those are the two critical roles for the office being open full-time?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Majors?
Thank you. First thing, I need to go back to the diversity complement. The response, I'm not going to comment on the response. How many people work in the office?
5.
Okay. Currently, there are 5. 5, okay. I can't hear you. I'm sorry. If you could get a microphone.
Currently 5.
5 people.
Mhm.
Okay. How many white males?
We don't have
None.
any males. The last one retired.
White female?
We have 3 white females.
Okay. No African Americans, correct?
The last one
The answer is
resigned.
no.
The answer
Okay.
is no.
The answer is
right?
no. That's fine.
Yes,
Hispanic,
yes, 1.
1.
Mhm.
And is it, last one would be Asian, maybe potentially, or is there, so you have 5, I'm down to 1 person left. Last person.
Would be me.
Okay. And how would you identify in terms of?
You can look at me and determine. I'm a white female.
Okay. All right, fine. Just again, the response felt very flippant. It wasn't, this question was not it was not a gotcha question. It was, we were asking this of every department. Everyone answered the question. Understanding your response about 0 white males, that's not the only thing that leads to diversity. You mentioned people being a part of the LGBTQ community. Great. We just are asking questions because these are important things to us as members of City Council. So thank you for your responses. With respect to City Treasurer and the Deputy Treasurer salary, the number that the administration changed, what is the new number that your office would like?
95,000.
Okay, thank you. And then per President Bauer's question, that is just a number that was determined by your office, and that still keeps, I just want to make sure, looking at the numbers, that keeps us, that's based upon, and I'm just looking at the document that was provided us tonight, that changes it per the treasurer from the requested budget for salary and wages from 416, 439 to 430, 673. That is, I guess, unit 414.
Well, actually, yes. And if you want to do total personnel, because there's a little increase then in fringe benefits.
Right, I was just looking at the salary and wages line first.
So that is, goes to 430, 673.
Right, and then overall personnel would be the 419,995, which goes to 463, 623.
That's correct. Oh, okay. That's the change. Right. Correct.
Right, okay. All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair Green.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels? Councilman Rodriguez?
Yes, thank you, Chair Green. Thank you for joining us this evening. I have to kind of echo the sentiments of Councilman Majors at this point. The diversity answer was a bit offsetting. Regardless of what you may feel comfortable with in your office, I just feel as this body deserves a bit more respect. Even when you look towards each other for answers, it was shrugging of the shoulders, a very nonchalantness that came with it. And even when you refer to like the poor city residents, et cetera, let's not forget, you will be asking those same residents for votes here in a short bit. So let's just always keep in mind of respect. And and just try to adhere to that, but I have no questions. And that's all. Thank you, Chair Green.
Thank you, Councilman Rodriguez. I do have a couple of questions myself. The first one is, are you comfortable with the staffing complement proposed in your budget? That you'll be able to officially operate the treasurer's office?
Well, we do officially operate the treasury office, it's a question. Yeah, I mean, we want to open, it has always been our goal to be open 100, 5 days a week. Yes, I think we'll be able to do that.
All right. So then, instead of officially, are you comfortable that you'll be able to open 5 days a week to the public with this? The answer was yes, right?
Yes.
Okay. And then, as we're talking about billing and different types of residents, poor, non-poor, however you want to say it, they all pay the same amount, right? So every resident pays the same amount on their refuse bill and the same percentage on their taxes. It's not based off of what they bring in, right? It doesn't matter if you bring in $10,000 a year or $100 million a year. Your taxes are still based on the same rates, correct? Like no one gets any breaks because they're poor.
Well, we do have a tax credit for low income elderly. And actually, that's the same thing I was referring to. I thought some of that was the issue with the annual report, but we've put a provision in the annual billing to address that exact thing, which would be low income elderly. So if we have a concern that folks like that can't maybe pay or afford the trash fee, this is a way for them to have it reduced or completely eliminated. So I think that was really a positive step on our part to look at that, and that's who we're concerned about. It's not that we're not concerned about everyone. We
Right.
are. Now, when you say that,
legislation we haven't gotten yet, right?
I'm sorry.
This legislative cycle, we haven't received that. We're still waiting on that.
Yeah, we're still waiting on that law to be written. So we haven't, it's been, the proposed has been written. We've written it, but the Law Bureau has never come through with anything. As far as there are differences but if you're talking real estate taxes, yes, there are differences because houses are assessed differently. The rates are the same. There's one rate for improvements and there's a rate for land. The land rate is 6 times the improvement rate.
Right.
Now, if you do live in your residence, you can get a homestead reduction, and that also helps, people to reduce. So I do encourage everyone to file for homestead reduction for their residents.
Okay, thank you for that information. I guess for me, it's off-putting when anybody calls somebody poor. So I don't like the term of poor residents, maybe lower income, maybe struggling, maybe, needing more assistance, but I don't like the term poor. So.
Okay, I'm sorry, I apologize for using.
So for me, that's kind of like, well, poor, you still want them to pay the same $30-something a month for their trash. If they have a house, you still expect them to pay their taxes or else you're going to take it. So for me, it's like poor, you don't know how I grew up. You don't know how anybody here grew up. Maybe we all could be categorized as poor. I know at one point in my life, I could be categorized as poor. So I do take that very offensive to categorize people and assume what they can and can't afford.
Well, let me clarify that again, that we put a provision in for low income elderly. If people qualify based on their income, based on their age, we're trying to get it so that their trash bill is either reduced or completely eliminated. So we're really working to ameliorate that problem.
And that is much appreciated. I don't have any other questions or comments. I don't know if anyone else has any other questions or comments for the city treasurer's office.
Thanks
Seeing
very
none,
much. I
thank
see
you for being here tonight and thank you for all of the information. Next, we will have the public safety goal statement from the Community Service Division. Good evening. If you would just be able to introduce yourself, kind of tell about what your division does, some of your accomplishments this year, as well as some of your goals for next year, and then any information that you want to give us.
All right, first I'll start with saying thank you. Sorry that we got some of this information late, but some of these things cover some of the questions that have already been asked of us. So that way you have something to follow through. I am Captain Milo Hooper. I am the Division Commander of the Community Services Division, specifically covering the Community Service Aids or the CSA program, which the Director.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Chardan Houston. I am the Director of Community Relations and Engagement, and I am the direct report of the Community Service Aides. So I guess we'll get right into it. I know one of the questions you guys had asked us is the Community Service Aids program continuing to be evaluated? And that question or that answer, thank you. Thank you, is yes. So every month, I'll be very transparent. I just receive access to the CODI reporting system. And so that is a system where the CSAs put in all of their calls meaning anything from a business check to an area check to a quality of life issue, to a detail that they've been assigned. It's all, it's the same system also that the police officers use. But prior to me receiving access for that, I was getting monthly reports from our crime analysts to see the type of calls that the CSAs were taking and assigned to. And now that I have that access, I have the ability to actually go in, read their narratives, offer suggestions, get them to picture that they're telling a story, so that if someone is looking at that information, everybody is able to understand it and read it from beginning to end. So those are some of the things that I've been working on with them, like I said, throughout my time here, especially now since I have that access. We do have weekly staff meetings. I started that shortly after I started this position. I felt that it was necessary for us to all regroup and talk about our week, talk about what things we had coming up for the week, talk about difficult calls that they may have encountered, how they could have maybe approached it differently, or what worked, what didn't work. And so it's really a great opportunity for us to come together as a team and just have an open dialogue. And so those are held weekly. And like I said, and I'm given updates, I give them updates. And again, it's just a staff meeting. And it's a way for me to evaluate too, what certain trainings I may feel that they may need. Some of the CSAs are great in certain things, but need a little bit more training or a little bit more help in a certain other area. But then there's some things that they excel at. And so they're able to help the other CSAs with that. So I think through those weekly staff meetings, I'm able to have that opportunity to see that and have that direct observation and work with them to work together as a team when it comes to that. When it comes to evaluating, getting feedback from the officers, there's a lot of times that they are called out to different calls where officers will also be on the scene, or they go to their roll calls and the officers may have a suggestion or, compliment them on something that they are doing. Civilian feedback. We get tons of emails from civilians, whether it's to help them with the issue or to just give us feedback on that they saw the CSAs out somewhere or that they appreciated their help. We also have in that folder a couple of acknowledgement letters that we received. We get phone calls left on our voicemail about appreciation for the CSA's efforts in helping them resolve a quality of life issue, helping them with the illegal dumping issue, and getting them to the right person. If we're not always able to assist them, I feel that the CSA's role is to be able to be a resource and provide them with resources to get that sort of aid that they need. And then when it comes to the final part of their evaluation is the annual evaluations, where we just, again, look at the year, look at the calls that they've taken over the past course of the year, ask them where they feel that they can improve, what goals would they like to see for themselves. I also ask them often, what do they envision the CSA role as, and try to get it to align with also the vision that I have as the director, as the new director. And so those are ways that we are currently evaluating the program. Any questions on that part? Okay. When it comes to what goals have been accomplished over the course of the year, I will say that we finally have a full complement of 6 CSAs. We did have 2 that left back in May, right behind each other. And now we're able to fill those 2 positions, one also being a bilingual team or CSA, which we desperately needed. And so I'm appreciative of that. As we know, our Latino community is growing exponentially. And so we need to be able to have access and be able to communicate to them as well and be able to be a resource for them as well. And so I'm very appreciative of Islaudy Pichardo. She's doing a wonderful job. She's helping in the admin office, admin police lobby window. And I said, I don't know if people got the memo that there's a bilingual person here, but it seems that, you know, she's able to really be a great resource for that position. When it comes to, we established an onboarding process for new hires. That was something that was very important for me, for us as a team to be able to have a process for when new CSAs come in and what that orientation and what that training looks like and really put it to paper. You know, there obviously, you guys know this was a new program, so there were some things that just were not, there was no framework to come, you know, to go by. So some of it was learning through trial and error, what worked and what didn't work. And so that has been the essence of how we've come to be able to do this onboarding process is, like I said, put it to paper, you know, what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, and actually implementing it. So if you look, there's also in your folder, there is a training process. It has different phases. It talks about the different trainings and certifications that we would like, not only that they have, but we would also like to see for the future as well. But most of those trainings and certifications, the CSAs have completed. When we talk about, again, I talk about the establishing a permanent position in the police lobby window. Right now, that is Islaudy Pichardo, our bilingual member. And like I said, she's been very vital to that role. And so we always are hearing positive feedback about her being at that window. She's pleasant. She wants to do a good job, and she wants to be able to have as much detail as possible. So I'm happy to, you know, work with her to make that happen. When we talk about increasing visibility, that was a goal that we wanted to see this year. And that means everything from creating a web page on the City of Harrisburg website, where if you look in your folders as well, there is a brochure that's in both English and in Spanish. And there's a QR code on the back. If you take that QR code, it will lead you to the webpage, to the CSD or Community Services Division webpage. On that webpage, you will have a picture of our lovely CSAs. It has frequently asked questions. If you click, it also has a bio for each of them, detailing their background and where they've come from, where they hope to go. There's also event photos on there from different events that they've attended. And so it's just another way to highlight them and give them visibility out in our community. So I encourage you, if you get a chance, to click on that QR code. If it doesn't work, please let me know. But let's see what else. A unit, creating a unit contact email and phone number. That was something that was important as far as visibility as well. All of the CSAs have business cards that have work telephone numbers, but I wanted a unified number or centralized number that the public could reach out to. And so if you also look in that brochure, you will also see that there is a contact number where they can be reached. And it comes to all of us. There also is a unified or one centralized group email. So I wanted also that access as well, so that people could reach out via email if they preferred. So if you also look in that brochure, that also is listed as well. When we talk about standardized business cards, the CSAs, when I first got into this role, kind of had different business cards, kind of had their own thing going on. And I said, I think that it would be great for us to all be on one central standardized page and look uniform. And so that was a goal of mine. And so we also were able to get that done. Again, the unit brochures in English and Spanish detailing what it is that the CSAs, their mission, their goals, what they're able to assist with. And again, ways that you can get in contact. And then also it has myself and Captain Hooper's picture on the back, and our titles as well. And then another thing that I wanted to see was creating a unit branding of material for community events. A lot of the time, the CSAs are asked to come to different community events. And so I thought that it was imperative to have signage that was also uniform. So a 10 by 10 tent that has signage on it, tablecloths that have signage on it, swag that has the same signage on it. Cohesion is really important. I come from a marketing background, and so it's very important to have cohesion when you're trying to promote something. And it all be uniform. So that was a goal. And so I'm glad to see that that was able to come to fruition. When we talk about increasing goals and visibility, also social media, we were able to merge the Facebook and Instagram pages. So anytime we post to Facebook, it also goes to our Instagram page, which is also a way to increase, visibility. I wanted people to be able to, again, know who the CSAs are, know what they look like, and be able to access them and see the cool things that they're doing in the community. A goal was to have a successful national night out. This year was my first year in this role of actually putting on an event of this size. And so I will say, yes, we had hiccups, but for the most part, I think it was a wonderful event. It was a well turned out event. I think people really enjoyed themselves. It was hot out that day. And it was just a lot, but it was awesome to see, smiles on people's faces and the kids enjoying the activities that were there for them. So that was a goal, to have a successful national night out. And I think we did that. And thank you to the CSAs for their hard work before and afterward. There was a lot of, this is a PSA announcement. There was a lot of trash at the end of that event. And my goal, even though we had 55 trash cans placed, my goal would be to eliminate some of that and just encourage people to, pick up after themselves and be the change that they want to see in their community. That's just a little PSA. But when it comes to other goals that were accomplished this year, we are very, happy that council approved and finalized the collective bargaining agreement between, the city of Harrisburg and FOP, which included, the CSAs and this unit, and we are appreciative of that. And then also, the final goal we have on here is increased the CSA grading pay scale from a grade 3 to a grade 5 entry level position. We definitely thought that the CSAs were, deserving of that increase. And so we were happy to see that you all agreed with that as well, and that the union agreed with that as well. So those are accomplishments for 2022. And then accomplishments or goals that we'd like to see for 2023, which are on the back of that paper. Are establish a more permanent working relationship with our neighborhood associations. We have quite a few neighborhood associations, and I would really like for us to really start working with them, attending those meetings on a regular basis. I'll be honest with you, I'm one person, so I can't attend every single neighborhood association meeting. So I want to be able to assign the CSAs to a specific neighborhood association so that they're able to build relationships with that association, find out what it is that an association is looking for from a safety perspective, and just what they need. and how we can be a resource to them. And so that is a really goal of mine, is setting up and implementing that schedule, that regular rotation, and then having them report back to me, and obviously find ways that we can actually implement what they're saying that they need. A future goal for 2023 is to establish a supervisory level position. I will be very honest with you. This position, now that I've been in it for almost a year, I will say is wearing several different hats. And if I really sat down and had an opportunity to do the managing part of just managing people, period, and then also writing and implementing programming, I would have no life. And so I would really like, I really think as this program progresses, that there is a need and a value to have a supervisor position under the director position, so that the director can have the ability to not only create, but implement, plan, and strategize actual programming. And that's just being as transparent as I can be with that. And so, yeah, and then establish an annual donation drives by partnering with community providers. I know a lot of, when we talk as a team, a lot of us would like to see, would like to help certain community providers that we've come in contact with. I had a conversation with someone who works at Dress for Success, and we just in random conversation, and she was like, we need makeup for women of color, and I was like, that would be a great, opportunity for our community, our CSAs, to get that word out. And so next year, I really would like us to sit down with certain community providers and actually implement donation drives within the city of Harrisburg on the Bureau side, so that we can really help some of these community providers with some of their needs. So that is a goal of mine. Increase digital marketing through social media platforms. I think that kind of speaks for itself, but nothing crazy. Facebook offers, you pay a couple $100 and it pushes your post and your advertising to the top of the list, things of that nature. Again, just to have visibility, just so people know who the CSAs are, know what they do, and just can be able to have access to them. So increase that digital marketing as much as possible. When it comes to partnerships, I've had a great working relationship with Dr. Stewart, who is the chairman of the Harrisburg Area Police Athletic League. And I really would like to continue that relationship with him. He has a lot of great ideas. He appreciates the ideas that I am trying to bring forward as well. And I think that it would just be a great partnership for the community service aides to work with this organization. We're even working with them, and the police bureau is also working with them this Saturday coming up for Shop with a Cop. And so that's a great opportunity for kids to really, look at their heroes, or look at career opportunities, and see the good. And so I'm excited for that program. When we talk about increasing training opportunities, there are a lot more, like I said, on that list that I would like to see happen. We were scheduled for a mental health aid training this past Monday. Unfortunately, with UPMC, unfortunately, it got canceled. So I'm looking to get that rescheduled sometime in January. I've been working with Tina Nixon, who's been very welcoming and very helpful with connecting us to different resources. And so I'm excited for that partnership as well. And so, yes, de-escalation training. Although they've had a sort of a de-escalation training that was short, it was about 4 hours, I would like to see them do a de-escalation training that is actually a 40-hour training. And it's outside of this office, and it's done through Dauphin County. So I would really like to see that just as an added value to their position. effective communication training. They're dealing with people every single day. And it's, it's one thing to be able to communicate, but it's effective communication. I think that is important in this role that they serve as community service aides. So I would like to see that happen. For myself, project management certification, even leadership, training only for myself. I'm only as good as the people that are under me. And so if I can grow and as a leader, then I would like to do so through training. So let's see, increase programming and fundraising opportunities, same thing, going back to the donation drives. I would really like to see us do fundraising for and help some of these community providers who need, whether it be financial or whether it be or monetary donations or whether it be, purchasing with the fundraising money that we get, purchasing something large that they may not have been able to do. So what does fundraising really truly look like within the parameters that we're given? I would like to sit down and really create programming around fundraising opportunities, increase personnel. I would love to see one day that the CSA program grow from 6 CSAs to at least 12 CSAs. Right now, the 6 CSAs serve one shift, which is 8 to 4. As we know, police officers work day, night, overnight. And so it would be great and also community events happen evenings, weekends. And so it would be great to have a full complement so that we can adequately not only serve and help the Bureau, but also the community in which, we're a part of and want to serve as well. And then the final thing is to identify and initiate community programs to address specific neighborhood needs. And again, that's kind of self-explanatory, but I really want to get some programming and some planning around that, around community programs to really try to help ring cameras in certain areas where, people want to feel safer, hotspots. What does that truly look like? Implementing that strategy and having those type of conversations that sometimes are difficult to have, but are necessary. So those are the goals for 2023.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your presentation and all of that information. It was very helpful. All of the information provided to us has been very helpful, at least for me. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues with any comments or questions. I'm going to start with our Public Safety Chair to my far left, Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair Green. Of course, thank you, Director Houston and Captain Hooper for joining us this evening. I love the picture with the moose here. I love it. Just good energy as we need to see, and thank you for having it translated in Spanish as well, something we definitely need. I myself have come across the CSAs out in public just in the middle of duty like a few times this year. So I definitely see an uprising in the visual, if nothing less. Last I remember, Director Houston, the 6 CSAs were splitting like a day shifts. Now it's switched to just like the one shift while they're out.
Yes.
Yes, one of the issues that we're coming across, because initially it was 8 to 4, 10 to 6, 12 to 8.
Yep.
And one of the problems was that when someone would take off, then you're kind of stuck with one person. So we still want to go back to that framework, but with more CSAs, so you have more of an overlapping coverage. And then once, like the director mentioned, 2 of them almost back to back, literally day to day, took other employment, and then we're down to 4. And so to stretch them out wasn't doing a service to the police, wasn't doing a service to the citizens of the city, and to be honest, wasn't doing a service to themselves. So we had to draw it in, and with the hopes of the program expanding and going back to that time frame.
Do you feel it's a more robust shift with them sharing that 8 to 4 time slot? They can
Well,
get more done together.
I'm sorry. Well, there is another time slot. I'm sorry. There is a 10 to 6. Actually,
Gotcha.
we do have a 10 to 6, but the 10 to 6 is actually the lobby. And the reason why we picked the 10 to 6 for the lobby was because we noticed most of the people that were coming in and speaking with the officers, most of the people that were coming in on the second half of the morning and in the first half of the late shift. So we put that 10 to 6 shift together, and that will become our lobby time frame until we're able to do more people. But yes, we did notice once they all come together from the 8 to 4, they are actually able to accomplish more for the citizens.
Thank you for that. Director Houston, with access to Cody now, do you feel that's more effective just in general communication, seeing what they're working on?
Absolutely.
Okay.
It's been a tremendous help, you know, with my role and trying to evaluate them and not even evaluate them, but help them. I feel my role as a leader is to help as much as possible, to meet people where they are and then rise with them. That's been my goal since I started. And so to be able to do that, I have to have access to the work that they're doing. And so, yes, it has been effective. And it has, I wish East Loudy was here earlier, but she could have been a testament to us working together. And, you know, she will show me a code report and say, does this make sense? You know, and it's like, you know, and yes, so it has been very helpful.
Thank you for that. I know Madam President, as well as a lot of other members on council, are really big on performance reviews. Do you think that can help with the performance reviews of the CSAs?
Yes. When I first started,
Gotcha. Different parameters for that. Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that. With the weekly meetings, what would be the opportunity if perhaps myself as Chair of Public Safety, maybe attending one a month,
absolutely,
just to kind of get the feel of where we are and maybe I can help out at all?
absolutely.
And
You're
even
more than
moving
welcome.
forward as you guys look to partnering with other neighborhood, just entities in the neighborhood, I'd love to help out moving forward in any way I can.
Absolutely.
That would be awesome.
Very welcome.
And then you briefly spoke about your vision for the CSA department. Could you just kind of indulge a bit more on, like, in totality, where do you see it in 5 years?
In 5 years, I really would like to see, like I said, my vision of the CSAs is that they are a community resource, connecting not only city resources, but connecting to outside resources, whether that's social services, human services. You know, we get a lot of illegal dumping calls quite often, connecting them to the codes department, connecting them to Mr. Pete Baltimore, you know, and just really being a resource, whatever that looks like. And so, like I said, for programming for me, I would like to see a steady rotation of really building relationships with the people with communities that are actually trying to make a difference and actually trying to build this city up. And like I said, and the only way you can do that, in my opinion, is through communication and then actually listening and then through implementation. So again, working with these neighborhood groups are the best people to have these conversations with, because they want to make their neighborhoods better. They want to make their neighborhoods safer, and they want help. So it's like that to me is an easy way in to identify some of the things that we can help them with. And sometimes it's just that they know what they need, but they don't know how to get it, you know? And so it's like, and I feel like for us, the community service aides is that educational piece to connect them to okay, we know what we want, but now we can show you how to get it. And so to me, that's really what that relationship is. It's helping take some of the load off of the police officers who are inundated with calls all the time. And it's like, okay, how can we help you as well? And so I think it's very important for us to be able to work that angle as much as possible. We'll be honest in saying too, sometimes, you know, people prefer to speak to civilians. It just is what it is. And so being able to have the community service aides be the civilian part of the policing part of things, I think sometimes is a nice liaison and a smooth way to transition into the policing side of things if necessary. We've had meetings with the CMU case management unit, you know, and they said, Sometimes they, either don't want to bother the police because they know that they're busy, or they just, sometimes some of their, clients just don't want to speak to police officers. So there's this idea that, okay, once they see a community service aide, it's like they're not really sure who they are, but they know they have some affiliation with the police. They know they can help them, so there's that too, and easing that understanding and getting and having the CSAs have that education to say, hey, the police aren't here to just get you. You know what I mean? They're also here to help and be a resource for you as well. And so I think that helps smooth things over. So for me, it's education, not only educating, again, effective communication for the CSAs, but really getting them to be the go-between of connecting people, like I said, to resources and just being out there in the community.
Absolutely.
And that's just, to me, that's what it is. It's just being out there, being visible, and just saying, hey, I'm here to help, stopping into different businesses. I mean, we have over 5,000 businesses, believe it or not, in the city of Harrisburg. What does that really truly look like? Are they really a part of the community? Do they even know, the certain resources that are available to them? And so it's getting them acclimated to that. And it's just being a part of your community. And to me, that's what I see for the community service aides.
Thank you for that. And then you had touched on the business checks. What would that entail? And would there be an opportunity to say, like the health department just got Mr. Russo to join on and help out a bit? What would be the opportunity perhaps for a collaboration there when there's a need for maybe a non-compliant business or anything of that extreme? How could the CSIs help with that?
So when I say business checks, how I envision business checks is that they go to a business, they introduce themselves, they say, hey, I work, with the Harrisburg Police Bureau, work for the city of Harrisburg. We help with certain issues like illegal dumping, I just want to put a face to the name. Is there anything that you guys need from a city standpoint, from a human standpoint? Is there anything that you're lacking or anything you would like to see different? Is there anything happening around your area that you would like that you want to applaud or you want to complain about? And like I said, sometimes people just don't know how to go about, asking for help. And so when I think of a business check, I think that CSAs are to go in there, introduce themselves, tell, who they are, who they work for, and how they can be a resource to that organization or to that business.
Thank you for that, by the way. Is there ever a follow-up procedure for that?
So yes, it's,
Okay.
and then that's that's another thing. I want there to be continuous follow-up. You can't just go in there one day, drop off your card and then never return.
Right.
You know what I mean? There has to be a consistent follow-up,
Build that
and
relationship.
building that
Yep.
relationship. So I want to be able to also assign a CSA to specific businesses that they have to go to on a consistent basis to build that relationship and report back.
And my final question, I do support the supervisor position. When that, I know it's a bit premature, but do you have like a job description or a scope of work? Or what would your criteria be for that individual?
Yes, we're kind of working on that. We kind of put one together. We had to tailor it to some changes that have to be made. But that is available. It's kind of like the preliminary stages are available if that's something you would like to look at.
Perfect.
But it just sitting here right now is just something that's just going to be a step above what's going on right now. But enough of a step where it will help out the director and some of the things that she had mentioned earlier.
Absolutely. If that's okay, Captain, if council can get a hold of that just to look at it briefly by chance, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I don't see an issue as long as the commissioner is okay with that.
Awesome.
I have no issue with that. I would say most likely the beginning of 2023, if that's okay with you.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. I know it's a bit premature. I just wanted to kind of get eyes on that. But I have no further questions. Thank you for joining us this evening and answering my questions.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels. Councilman Majors.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. So I guess first question for me is in terms of getting some of the data and the reports that they're putting into the Cody system, the overall numbers is great. I guess, do you do any work with anyone else in the management unit, particularly the court liaison, the special events coordinator, or the crime analyst, in the work that you're doing as with the community services division to try to see if there's any collaboration or cross coordination that can be done with the community services division?
Well, I believe I know some of the things you're asking. Yes, well, first of all, the crime analyst, Adrian Hoffman Lewis, actually works out of our division. So she's right there hand in hand. Her office is actually right there with them, right outside their workstations. So there's a lot of, like, for instance, I'll give you an example. Crime analyst Hoffman Lewis had a meeting with with one of the, it may have been the vice unit. It was one of the undercover units in reference to documenting graffiti. And so what she did was she reached out to the director and had in reference to the CSAs going out while you're out on the streets. If you see graffiti, can you take a picture of it, notate where it came from, and get it back to us? She was able to compile that information and turn that over. So that's one of the ways they kind of work together. I know you mentioned the court liaison. One of the duties that our court liaison, Sarah Bradnick, does is kind of puts together some of the events. And a lot of times, let's just say like the July 4th event, a lot of times she will reach out and say, hey, listen, are the CSAs available to assist with that or with this situation or that situation? And at which point they can come out. As you know, as some of y'all know, you were at the parade, they were in the parade. And that's obviously working hand in hand with other organizations within the city itself. So yes, there's that is ongoing, and it's going to continue to be ongoing, I should say.
Thank you. And I know you mentioned with some of the goals and working with some other community organizations. Is there any coordination with the mayor's office? I know they have a community affairs person, a special assistant there. You know, we have someone over at Parks and Rec, your office. Is there opportunities for cross collaboration across departments?
Yes.
That you're experiencing?
Yes, we have, Kevin Saunders has reached out to me on numerous occasions and said, hey, would you like to, jump on this event and partner? Chief Interline has been great in reaching out and wanting to partner. Obviously, we're under the same, helm of public safety. So we actually participated in their fire prevention week that they had at 2 different fire stations. I was on the grill cooking hot dogs, and the community service aides were there and had their tent up and their table display. And I think it's a great partnership, like you said, about cross working together within other entities within the city. Again, working with codes, they're also under public safety. I make sure that every CSA has an opportunity to meet with the codes officers so that they know what they look like when they see them out in the streets, so that they're able to relay information back to the codes officers as well. So it really is important for us to, to work together because we're all trying to meet in the same goal, which is, to increase public safety as much as possible. So I think we would be remiss not to. Would I like to see more of it? Absolutely. But yes, we are finding ways to work with other entities within the city.
Okay, thank you. And I know, I don't know if this question is for community service division or in terms of, I know there's conversation about potentially expanding the number of CSAs, not in this budget, but in the future. Is that another union negotiation that would have to occur? Or is that something that we could do outside of that with FOP?
Yeah, it's not a negotiation with FOP unless we were taking away
Okay.
work that is literally police work. I think we have an MOU in place that satisfies the scope. And like every other city employee, every CSA, and every police officer has more things they could do than we have people to do them. And that's the reality.
Okay. And I may have another question, but I'll defer for now. Thank you, Chair Gray.
Thank you. President Bowers.
Thank you for answering the questions that were submitted, but I do have a few follow-ups. First, you mentioned that you recently received access to Cody. Is that something that the CSAs receive access to upon being hired?
Well, the majority of the CSAs came in, as you know, a year ago.
Right.
Initially, no, they did not have access to Cody. The CSAs that are being hired as of now, like this year, we had one, Tisha Barber was the latest one to come in, as well as Islali Pichardo. Yes, as you can see in the training packet, that is what they get as they come in. So the answer is yes and no. In the beginning, no, but now yes.
Okay, just wanted to clarify. And then, Director Houston, I'm assuming these are written reports in Cody
Yes.
that you're reviewing.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are. They have in the Cody reporting system, yeah, they have to detail who, what, when, where, why, basically. And then there's also a supplemental narrative that goes along with the who, what, where, when. There's drop downs that they can use and fill in what officers they were with, if they were with any officers and things of that nature as far as detail. But then there's an opportunity for them to also detail what happened or took place at that call. And so a lot of it is just, again, just education, going over remember, imagine that, you know nothing about this story or about this situation. You want somebody else to be able to understand what it is that, you're writing. And so it's just really, like I said, again, education, working with them to get them to remember and keep in mind the who, what, when, where, and why. And so, yes, so it is a written narrative.
Okay. And then you mentioned social media, but you didn't share any handles, or you didn't note how people can follow the CSAs other than the website.
So the website, if you go to our click the QR code, it does go to our webpage, but then also has a link to our Instagram and then also our Facebook. But if you would like to look us up on Facebook, it is under the Community Services Division. And you would just type that into your Facebook and that would come up. And the same thing with with Instagram. The hashtag is Community Service AIDS, I believe. Sorry, I'd have to double check the handle, but I believe the handle for Instagram is Community Service AIDS. And then for Facebook, it's Community Services Division.
Okay.
So, yes.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councilman Matson?
Thank you. I don't have any questions. You did a pretty thorough overview of the program. A number of my follow-up questions were already asked. So thank you.
Thank you. And Councilwoman Rawls?
Thank you. Good evening to you both. Thank you for coming to share your goals from last year and also what you've accomplished and your goals for this upcoming year. I love the brochure. I too would just like to see some handles on it, but I loved it. I didn't see it before, so I thought it was great. I think the community will love it. I love that you are doing, having meetings with the CSAs, like you said, regrouping, refreshing, talking, because I think that's how you build community within yourselves. So then when you go out in public, they see that community as well. So thank you. And I look forward to seeing all that you all do this year with the CSAs. Oh, and sorry, I do want to add a great job they are doing. I've seen them at Melrose, my daughter's school, when traffic out there was horrendous. They were trying to control it in some manner, but because their presence was there for a couple of days, it has gotten much better. I don't feel like my car is going to get hit every time, and I'm not nervous. So I thank you for their presence. And just the other day, they were helping a gentleman whose car, the wheel totally came off. It was like on Market and Whitehall Street, I believe. And they stayed there with him and waited. And I just thought that was admirable. So just thank you for all the work they're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. I do have one question before I open it back up, maybe two. I noticed we're talking about 6 CSAs. I believe we originally authorized 7 CSAs for the community service division for this program. It was 7 CSAs that we originally authorized. Last year, there were 7 CSAs in the budget. 1 was zeroed out. This year, there are only 6 CSAs in the budget. Is there a reason why?
I don't have that answer.
I think that's a budgetary question.
Okay, I don't know if the microphone's on.
Sorry, it was a budgetary challenge, and we have to admit that Deputy Chief Sorensen did a gallant job of working with us, despite the fact he probably wanted to hit us. But he was very lovely and really worked with us. And again, we wish there was opportunities and resources, and we hope to have them in the future. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I will note then that the position control needs to show that there were 7 last year and there are only 6 this year, because that's what it is. Last year, I guess it was there, but it was just zeroed out, so it wasn't used. But I will note that there were a lot of funds that weren't used, and rather than leaving positions empty, sometimes I think it might be better for us to look at filling those positions if it even recalls, a budget reallocation to bring the funds down to fill positions if we really want to invest in certain programs. So that's just kind of my question there. There's another question as far as the position control. Last year, there was a community service division supervisor. Would that be the same supervisor that you're looking to add next year? Or was that a different community service?
No,
division supervisor?
that's the exact same. Well, I would have to look at what you're talking about in your budget. I know initially last year for the 2022 budget, initially it was put in requesting a supervisor. Now we could be talking about another supervision within the CSD department, not so much CSA. So without having the specifics,
It's not in this year's at all. It's not
most-
listed at all,
most
but last
likely-
year it was in there.
I'm sorry. Most likely it was the CSA supervisory position that we're looking to fill next year.
Okay. If so, I do believe that there was a job description built last year. If so, we may want to take a look at that.
Yes, and that's what I said. There were some changes that had to be made.
Okay.
That's why I was indicating that, had to kind of rewrite some things. But yes, it will be available.
All right, thank you. And then lastly, just for the Finance Bureau, as we're going over some of those technical amendments and getting things together when it comes to the budget, if we can make for sure we just go through all the position controls from last year, and if a position was there and it's no longer there, can we just note the position there
Absolutely.
last year and then not there this year? That way it's easier to look year for year at the budget.
Duly noted, and Mr. Brooks is here. He'll be taking special notes. Thank you for your attention to that matter.
Thank you. And then do we have any other questions or comments from my colleagues? I'll start with Councilman Majors.
Just two real quick, for the community services division. So I guess what is the vision for the division? I know at one point we had school resource officers, we had a few other things. Trying to get your vision for CSD.
Well, the vision for CSD is very simplistic to me. Yes, school resource officers, I would love to have school resource officers. I would love to have a full complement of housing officers and anything dealing with the public. You got the community police officers, the housing officers, school resource officers, animal control, CSAs. The vision really is to be a force within the department, meaning like in this time and age. I mean, I hate to say that because to me it's always been this way, but this time and age, like the community, the way you treat the community, the way you look at the community is important. And I think I would like to see the true investment in this division. And I would like to see it flourish, and I would like to see it to be a division that, has a true impact on not just the community, but on the department itself. Because I believe it can be the bridge that kind of connects the two, and not just the department, meaning the police department, but like I said before, in this very room, I believe, the city itself with all the city resources. Because even with the school resource officers, like we're dealing with students, you're dealing with the future of our city. You're dealing with maybe future police officers. Like I know there's other positions, but those are some of the things that we try to look into, like trying to diversify the department. And sometimes you have to start with a different generation. So in my opinion, this division is very important. And I think my vision for this department, for this division, is to be a true force within the city.
Thank you. And then I guess, and I can look at the CSA pictures and see that there's a diversity amongst the members of the community service aides. In terms of the community service division, just want to see, I mean, could you speak to any diversity there? I also think, and just as I guess a quick comment first, I agree with you in terms of community services being a vital part of what police are supposed to be doing in the community. I personally have law enforcement members in my family. I do not like the use of the word civilian and police. I mean, civilian to me is everyone who is in the armed forces. Police are meant to serve our community. We shouldn't, to me, that civilian versus the police creates an adversarial relationship in terms of the language, but that's just a quick aside. But in terms of the community services division, is there diversity amongst that division? I also think, is there diversity amongst that division?
Outside of the CSA program?
Yes.
No.
Okay. Thank you. And just my last comment, I do think that, as you said, is vital. And I think that members of the police, uniformed police, should consider doing a rotation in the community services division, because I guess, like you said, everyone's serving the public, but if you guys, your goal is to serve, to have a little bit more hands-on with members of the public and have that communication, making sure that our police officers are having quality interactions with members of the public that aren't always to a call in a response format could be another way to help build the relationship between members of our community and the police force. Thank you.
I do want to correct one thing in reference to diversity. There is one female officer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much for being here tonight. Thank you for all the information that you provided. And it's good to see you guys. Next on our agenda, we have the Office of the City Controller. And I do believe Ms. Marita Kelly will be going over their budget with us.
Yes, thank you, Chair Green. Before I begin, I would like to extend sympathy to the Deputy Controller who recently experienced a death in his family. His mother passed away today. So just wanted to extend our sympathies to him and his family. As you can see, the controller's budget's a very basic budget. The controller, of course, is an elected official, the city controller, Mr. Charlie DeBruner. The chief deputy controller, Bill Weinberger, as you know, has been here for decades and goes back to being the accounting manager before Brian. So just a terrific individual. And then they have one auditor two position, which is a union position, and a very, very tiny budget, $2,250, so, or $3,250. So in terms of their line items. So I think it's fairly basic, fundamental, and foundational. But if you have questions, I can attempt to answer them. But I think it's just basic supplies and some maintenance and repairs.
Thank you very much. I'll open it up to my colleagues for questions, starting to my right with Councilwoman Ross. Any questions or comments?
Thank you for presenting for us, Ms. Kelly. No, I don't have any questions. It is a small budget.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Councilman Mattson?
No questions for me. Seems pretty straightforward. Thank you.
Thank you. President Bowers?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Majors?
No questions, thank you.
Councilwoman Daniels?
No questions.
And Councilman Rodriguez?
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't have any questions regarding this budget either.
Thank you very much, Chair Green.
Thank you, and thank you for presenting for us.
Happy to do so.
Next, we have the Bureau of Licensing, Taxation, and Central Support.
Good evening, Harrisburg City Council, Mike Hughes, Tax Administrator. I'm going to read some prepared remarks first, then I'll answer council's questions before I go into a PowerPoint here. The Bureau of Licensing, Taxation, Central Support actively collects business privilege, mercantile tax, parking tax, and amusement taxes. We also collect license fees for businesses, landlords, vendors, fuel trucks, and parking lots and garages. In addition, as the first stop for new business applicants, we collect zoning, fire prevention, and health license fees for those offices. We also collect fire and police false alarm charges and dog licensing revenue. Our paralegals lead our civil collection efforts, and we regularly file civil complaints and attend court hearings. They also work very closely with the codes department on landlord licensing related issues and conduct research on weekly property transfers to ensure that the data from the county was correctly received and inputted. We also staff the duplicating mailroom center, where all the incoming and outgoing mail is sorted, processed, and posted accordingly. The mailroom employee also handles citywide print requests, large monthly mailings, and monitors the inventory of office supplies. Our office is open daily to the public, and we continue to provide face-to-face customer service as my team takes pride in assisting current and prospective business owners. In regards to the pre-submitted questions, when do you intend to fill the administrative clerk vacancy? We did fill this position just recently on 11/28/22. What is the department's diversity component? I have 7 total employees, 4 white females, 2 black or brown females, and 1 white male with 2 city residents. One of our employees writes and speaks Spanish. Additionally, our team consists of 1 employee with 31+ years of experience. I myself have 26 years. I have 2 employees with 6 years experience, 1 with 1 year, 1 with 2 months, and 1 with 1 week of service. 4 of my employees hold a bachelor's degree. All right. Now, I'd also like to talk about some trends in revenue. I have it on the PowerPoint. Well, first, gotcha. It's okay. So I will read through some prepared remarks first and then go through the slides quickly. It will explain or show some of the comments I'll be speaking to. So the pandemic provided some challenges along with opportunities for our office. And once the building was closed to the public, we analyzed our operation and we began utilizing the time that was previously taken to meet with customers to pivot and focus our efforts more on delinquent accounts, which resulted in a significant increase in prior year tax revenue, penalty, and interest in year 2021 for the work that we started in year 2020. The day after the pandemic shut the building down, we posted a sign on the front door, listed our phone number for taxpayers and for all the mail delivery drivers, so they had someone to contact and come down and open the door for the first couple of months. So we kept operations flowing in that regard. Once we did start receiving tax returns for year 2020, our revenue has continued to grow despite the pandemic. We've noticed, a shifting in many of the business sectors during this time in which, retail operations adapted to the challenges. They shift the way they handle business in the past. We saw uptick in takeout versus dine-in, different online sales increases in some other areas where people's revenue actually increased instead of decreasing during the pandemic. We did, however, not have any control over the loss of the amusement tax or parking tax revenue during this time. Facilities closed, clubs and sporting events, were suspended, and amusement tax, dropped dramatically during this time. Similarly, many of the workers, were not coming into the office, working from home, and then the parking revenue also dipped, which we'll see on the slides. More recently, we've seen some businesses displaced by the new roadway project, and a couple of larger businesses that are planning on moving out of the city because they need a larger footprint. On the positive side, our revenue and licensing has been greatly enhanced over the past couple of years due to the large ongoing construction projects, including the federal courthouse, the archives, Harrisburg University, the Forum Building, State Library, and many more smaller scale projects. In 2023, it should bring more construction. We have the Catherine Hershey Child Care Center going up, along with continued activity on some of the existing larger projects, and then several more residential housing projects that are recommencing. Internally, cooperation between the offices has dramatically increased this past year, and we have conducted training sessions for codes employees and have met with Treasury staff to find ways to improve current processes. In addition, we've worked closely with fire, police, and codes to assist with tracking, and closing illegal business operations. We're excited for the upcoming opportunities with the new citywide software system and what they will bring. However, it will certainly be a process to move off a system that was specifically customized to meet our needs for the past 30 years. But looking forward, we envision offering additional payment and filing options for taxpayers, along with our old traditional methods of payment and tax filing once our portion of the new software is implemented in 2024. So just going over the numbers, I kind of already spoke to the numbers on this page. You can see 2019 was, the high number overall, 7.7 million. And then it dipped in 2020, slight rebound in 2021, and rebounding some more in 2022 year to date. And that number will surely go higher at the end of December. And on this particular slide, you can surely see that the current year mercantile tax, even during the pandemic, continued to rise. So that was good news. It's not what we expected, but we were pleasantly surprised when the numbers did come in. So as year to date 2022, we're at 3.2 million, and that number is still rising through the end of December. Now, this slide shows the story of the prior year taxes I spoke of. When we shifted our efforts during the pandemic to focus on that, and then the resulting bump up that came in year 2021, where we hit $500,000 in prior year tax income, mainly from the work of my team and our paralegals. And then that number started to dip back down this year, but still at higher levels than 2019 and 2020. And the same can be said about the penalty. It peaked in 2021 as a result of those efforts. And the interest also in 2021 peaked and then dipped slightly back down, although the 2022 numbers of both of the items are still higher than years 2019 and 2020. Now, the amusement tax it tells an interesting story. In 2019, we hit a high of 304,000 for the city portion. We also collect this for the school district. And then the pandemic hit. Luckily, we had some of the bigger events at the farm show early in 2020, so we did get some decent revenue, and then it started to tail off, went down pretty far in 2021. But luckily, things have rebounded here in 2022, and we expect to end the year close to the 2019 number. Now, the parking tax, we were at 4.2 million in 2019. Pandemic hit, the number started sliding downward in 2020 and 2021 with more people working remotely. We were lucky that we did have many long-term leases that kept us afloat there. Now the number has slowly started to rebound just slightly. And I do expect another decent payment coming in December. So we should finish the year at 3.6 million plus. So we will be going back up the other way. However, I don't see us ever getting back to the 2019 numbers unless everyone comes back to work. Another positive note, coming out of the pandemic, we saw the licenses start to severely pick up. I think a lot of people, when they had the time off or time at home, started to formulate business plans. And then in 2021, we saw a really big jump. It went from 537 total licenses issued in 2020 to 599 in 2021. And as of yesterday, we hit close to an all-time record of 605. And by the end of the year, we should set that record for all time. So that's the positive news with the licensing. In closing, I'd like to thank my team for all their efforts and the corresponding successes that this office has achieved this past year. Now I'll take any questions.
Thank you very much. I'm going to open it up for questions, starting with Councilwoman Ross.
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you for coming tonight. Thank you for the PowerPoint. It really put more emphasis on what's going on in your office. What are you doing? What are some things you are excelling at? And just thank you for the hard work. You could have already said this, and I'm sorry if you did, but what are some of your goals for this year for the office?
So obviously to us as a revenue producing office, we clearly want to exceed year over year. In addition, we want to make sure we try and issue more licenses year over year. We want to continue to provide better customer service, be accessible as much as we can, which we are. I mean, we're open longer than the doors are open every day. I mean, we take phone calls, we meet with people in person. They can walk in, we don't require appointments. So just to continue to serve. I mean, we see down the future, things are going to get a little more challenging next year. I see what some of the other departments are going through and how much time they're having to devote to the software transition, and how many hours it's taking from their regular work. So we are aware it's going to be a challenge next year with that transition, but we see the light at the other end. I think it'll be improved processes, options for taxpayers to better make payments, online and other forms. And we would also like to hope that, they can pay in person when they like, and we don't have to turn them away when they come into the building.
Thank you. My other question was, you did mention the software, and I did see in the budget that you had a line for software for $5,000, and I don't think there was that much before. Right before it was about like 1,000 or so, and then this year was 5,000. So I was wondering what that was for. Is it increased?
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I think we just actually better classified one or two items, and that's why that number was higher than where they were listed before. So that item is comprised of, it's called the Connect Right software, which is software that IT uses for us for our mail sorts. They're able to run the data through there. It hits up against the postal addresses, make sure we have good addresses to where we're sending items. If there's any change of addresses, it catches some of those, helps us have better data to make sure the mail gets where it's supposed to go. In addition to that, there's our time clock software is included. I'm sorry. Our certified mail software is in there. So we have software specific for people to log into from the different departments to properly send out their certified mailings. And we also subscribe to a construction journal software, which has been great. We've been subscribing the last 2 years. It really helps us, especially with these large construction projects, find out who the general contractor is, make contact with them, get lists of all the subcontractors on those jobs, which has really resulted in a lot of the increased licensing that we see. So,
Thank you. That makes sense. Thank you. And the my other question was, I just have two more questions. The other one was for the legal services. I saw the legal line. You had no money in the budget for that for the past couple of budgets, but then this year was 26,000. So I was just wondering what that was towards.
yeah, exactly. And we did the same thing there. We just repositioned to more accurately reflect what we were doing there. It was there in the total last year. We just pulled it out and itemized it differently. We have been working with the solicitor on 3 large cases that we're trying to bring to the county court level. We regularly attend the district justice on our own. So the solicitor is assisting with that. But that particular line item, we're looking to have our rules and regulations rewritten. It's been 20 years since we've had that done. There's been a lot of changes. So we want to address that this year if we can.
Good. And just to further touch on that with the rules and regulations, I know over the summer, a community member had a small issue with, I think it was the umbrella license. And I believe a few things have changed. Because before, I guess you could get an umbrella license to have an event somewhere, and I guess it was $200, and it would cover any vendors that were in your, I don't want to say show, but that were a part of your event. How has that changed this year? Just so I'm clear, we're all clear, because I think we get that question often in the
Sure.
summer.
No, I appreciate that. So it hasn't really changed. Maybe we just try and clarify it a little better to people who are new to holding events. So we have it's called a transient license, $200 for a one-time event. And we generally, try and work with our taxpayers on this. So if it's a new event, a new show, we say, hey, this will cover all your non-food vendors at this event. However, all food vendors need their own license because it also requires a health license. So, but for the non-food vendors at an event, we do allow the $200 license, at least one time. Now, once we see that something's becoming like a regular type of operation, then we would transition them to the business license, and those vendors would then need their own license. For instance, we did the same thing years ago. People may be familiar with the Harrisburg Flea. When they first came to us, I want to say 8 to 10 years ago, kind of told us, hey, we're just having a flea market, didn't really explain what they were doing. So we said, well, this will cover you. Well, then it turned out to be very successful for them, and they ended up having this event every month on a regular basis. And a lot of the same vendors coming into the city, mainly from outside. So then we pivoted and, you know, and then worked to make sure all those vendors are licensed on their own. So.
Okay, that makes sense. I got it. One-time event, the umbrella license is okay. It'll cover all the non-food vendors, but food vendors will need their own license because they get the health portion with it. the health
That's
license.
correct.
Okay, but if it's more, it's regular, it's every year, every Saturday, then you need a.
Well, basically, well, every year, but if it's more than one time a year. If it's just
Okay.
one time a year and yet one time next year, then we will allow the $200
Then-
license. Yeah.
Okay, all right.
But when it becomes a more regular ongoing basis, we have to transition them. So.
Thank you so much for that
You're welcome.
clarification. That's all I have.
Thank you, Councilman Mattson.
Thank you. Good evening. So my question is similar to what I asked of the Treasury Department. Is there any outstanding monies that the city get through higher enforcement, or do you feel like the current complement is sufficient to collect all the monies that the city?
Well, there's always room for more enforcement in every area, I would say, including ours. I mean, we work very hard at what we do. We're actually at our full complement for the first time in a long time. So I expect to see better things in the next year or two. We're doing training right now on our two new employees, so that takes a little while to get them up to speed of what we expect. But once they get to that level, I expect our numbers to go up. We have two paralegals. You know, we're in court twice a month. You know, with anywhere from 5 to 10 cases each of those days. So we do regularly, you know, do enforcement. You know. But it's an ongoing thing. I mean, what we've been seeing now from the first paralegal we hired 6 years ago, she was suing people civilly 5 years ago, brought them current. But unfortunately now we're seeing repeat offenders and we have to re-sue a lot of the same people over again to compel them to pay. So it's an ongoing process. So now, you know, where's that threshold of would another employee bring how much extra dollars, you know, to make it worthwhile? You know, didn't really explore the numbers. I mean, we have no more space in our area. And I'm sure as a revenue generating office, you know, more employees would bring in more revenue, but I would have to look at the numbers more to see how much, you know,
Right.
where would that threshold be to make sense for one or two more people. So.
Yeah, that was going to be my follow-up question is there any way to kind of figure out a dollar amount for every dollar we invest in terms of salary in the department? Does that return?
Yeah, so
dollars
and this particular tax, I mean, I could do that for LST, EIT, real estate, but because everyone pays a different amount, it's very difficult, you know, to forecast, to know what the outstanding amount is on any given day, you know, and even to think what the revenue would be if everyone would be paid to date. It's almost impossible to figure that out. So.
And this is probably a question for the solicitor, but since it was sort of mentioned in the presentation, if state employees are working 3 times a week in the city of Harrisburg, can we still collect?
We can and we do. It's dictated by where they're headquartered.
Correct.
Philadelphia has certainly had litigation over it because they have a home rule charter. The state has taken the position to date that it is where they're headquartered. Whether that ever gets a challenge, we hope not, but you know, but no court has said otherwise at the moment. But it's obviously a real concern. And we don't know really where the state's going to go with in-person issue. The last number I got from, it was actually the person that directs SP Plus on the daily car count into the city. It was still drastically lower than what the daily car count was pre-COVID. And so that tells you there are not customers coming in, there's not workers coming in.
No, I've noticed that in my commute. There's a non-session day, then you see a lot less cars and traffic and you know, patrons and businesses.
But the city's legal position is if you're employer is in the city of Harrisburg, and that is your headquarters, that you, the tax is owed and due to the city of Harrisburg.
So last question I have is there any way, hopefully the state works with us a little bit and tries to give us this data as best they can so we can kind of prepare to know what our revenue loss is per less employees coming. But is there any way to look at, say, a drop of collections from the state because so many people have full teleworked, and maybe kind of get a sense or projection? I mean, it's probably shooting in the dark a little bit, but
I don't think that's occurred yet. I mean, that's the answer. I mean, I think that right now they're paying into the tax.
oh, okay.
I'm saying our position is it's where they're headquartered. They're headquartered in the city of Harrisburg.
Right. No, I hear that. But so if somebody, I was under the impression if somebody was full on teleworking every day, that we could no longer collect.
Well,
commuter status.
we would have to sort that legal question. But I don't know that the position the state has taken on that. They have not communicated a position to the city that I'm
Oh,
aware of.
okay. So if an employee is full teleworking, doesn't come into the city at all, we are still collecting as services tax.
Well, it's very hard to imagine how many state workers are fully teleworking if they're headquartered, depending what their job is. It can be digital, but they have a place to answer to every day. They have a
Okay.
boss, they have a series of bosses and a series of state equipment to use and all of those things. But for not just for us, it's going to get sorted out for everybody.
Right.
Because the pandemic just changed the economy in a permanent way. So
That's it for my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. President Bowers.
I don't have any other questions. Thank you for responding to the questions submitted.
Councilman Majors.
Yes, I guess just one question regarding the other line of $110,647 listed in the proposed budget under license and taxation central support. Find the budget unit. It's at the, hold on, I'll find that budget number unit. Second.
Oh, gotcha. So under the capital budget.
Yeah.
Very good question. So we're in the process of replacing our folder inserter machine and postage machine in the mailroom. Both have exceeded their expected life by at least 2 years at this point in time. We've received 2 competing quotes. We're still weighing those out. We're still doing some on-site visits to other businesses that have similar pieces of equipment to make sure they can do what we want them to do. And I was also holding off before we move forward, because I knew there's the possibility of the annual billing, which would affect my decision on the model we would go with because we'd have a decreased volume then. So, but we're still weighing those 2 out, but we do need to replace them very soon.
Okay.
Now, some clarity on that also. So there's 2 numbers that comprise the 110. One number would be if it was a purchase, the other would be if it was a lease, and it would that would be for the first year's lease payment. So in any case, it will not be that total. It'll be one or the other. It'll be either the $23,000 number or the 90, depending which option we choose. We also have to spend a little more time analyzing interest rates and which option is going to make best fiscal sense to the city.
Okay, and that handles all of the billing, that machine, right?
Right, so the folder inserter is our biggest machine, which does the trash bills, real estate bills, any large run, especially any runs that need an envelope, a return envelope inserted, or an insert to go in to inform citizens of something, whether it's the penalty increase going back in January of 2023, or some informational document that we can insert in there. It works its way down the machine and then brings it to the end, and we switch it over to the mailing machine that puts the postage on.
Okay. And then I don't know if this is for you, I guess if you were for Ms. Kelly. I know one of the pieces that you talked about that I know is going to be a big heavy lift for everybody across the city as we're making this transition to the new software. I guess from your office's perspective, is there an opportunity there to move any of our paper billing to an online option through this new system to try to eliminate on some of the paper? So yeah, I'll ask that question first.
Oh, for sure. I mean, and that's what we're hopeful of with the new system offering the online option. I mean, I see it'll take time, to educate people, get them to switch over. I mean, the IRS has been offering for years and they still get millions filing paper. But we want to offer it for sure. It'll also help us out. We began a scanning program a couple of years ago. So we are at least, scanning all our returns electronically once we have them. But we're looking forward to cutting down the paper also.
Yeah, I agree. And then the last thing I'll just note, one of the pieces that we were talking about, the annual billing thing. The city does have the ability to do quarterly billing if we so chose, right?
Right. And when I first started here, that's
We
what the
did,
city was
right.
doing. Yep.
And that would be one way to save on the life of the equipment
Sure.
and address some of the issues around that we're looking to do. So, okay.
Yes.
Just want to put that on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels. Thank you. And Councilman Rodriguez.
No questions. They've already been answered, but thank you for being here this evening. Thank you, Chair Green.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate all the information you provide every year, and we appreciate the work that your department does.
And this is unrelated to the business office here, but if you recall, we are going back to penalties for trash bills in January. And if past is prologue, not just with us, but others, that should increase a number of people that are paying, because some people just look at it as free money. They don't have to pay it. There's no penalty. And that is going to change some of the collection habits. I believe that's going to happen. You're going to see that realization in 2023.
Thank you. All right, we will continue on with our committee business to the Bureau of Business and Resource Development.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening. If you could introduce yourself, what your department does, and some of the things you've done this year and your goals for next year.
Yes, I can. I want to thank you again for having me this evening. My name is Jason Graves. I am the Director of Business Development and also the LERTA Administrator. Our department we work closely with assisting with policies for strengthening and encouraging and growing business opportunities within the city of Harrisburg. Also and assist with the Director of Community and Economic Development by creating programs and initiatives that will assist existing businesses and encourage new businesses for new locations. Along with that, I am also the LERTA Administrator, which is the Localized Economy Revitalization Tax Assistance Program. With that, it's basically an incentive program that will help developers, new developers, and also our program is kind of niche because we deal with also residents as well, who actually want to go into refurbishing, remodeling, as long as they reach a certain threshold, and they can basically take advantage of this program. Quick overview of what we do, basically business attraction, business retention, referral to resources, again, LERTA administration, accomplishments for this year, drafting a strategic economic development plan that is ongoing, which we should be able to be finishing within the next few weeks.
Building rapport with small business resources as far as like with SBA, SBDC, which we are in the works of actually bringing them back into the city. They are actually we're looking at probably trying to house them with Harrisburg University. They may be looking at their own space. But it's a resource that has not been in the area in a while. They actually want to hire actual local people versus having people come from Berks County and Lancaster County. So they want to actually have local participants here so they can actually service in a better way. Also beginning discussions is an ongoing thing also as well, with getting more food sources within the city of Harrisburg. I've been having quite a few talks with local food chains, grocery store chains, about how we can actually better service the area in the city of Harrisburg. As of right now, we only have one grocery store that actually services 50,000 people. We are looking to get more services as far as like larger amount stores that can actually help and benefit in certain areas. And with bringing in a grocery store, everybody knows it brings a lot of foot traffic. So that can also help small businesses. Actually, will attract more small businesses in certain areas who actually need it. Building collaborative relationships with Dauphin County and also a few state representatives, looking at initiatives as far as bringing funding for small businesses. We are looking at, had a couple talks already. We're looking at as far as like, I should say, looking for funding resources, initiatives with investors and also grant monies. So we can actually fund these small businesses versus having everything on the city of Harrisburg's back. Again, I know everybody looks at the money that we were supposed to receive as far as like the state government funding. Again, it's a drop in the bucket, but that money can only service but so much. So the thing is like, what other resources do we have out there that we can actually service and become a part of the actual community and neighborhoods and actually get people who actually bring businesses in the city of Harrisburg versus going in the outskirts. That's one thing that is a big thing. I know I've had a couple of talks with a lot of people who are actually new employees as far as like with Commonwealth that are from other areas that actually come in. And the first thing they ask me is, why are there so many empty storefronts in certain areas? So it's a somewhat easy question, a hard question to answer sometimes. But one of our initiatives as far as like on that level is actually try to help bring more businesses in the area so we can actually funnel more people in. And I know the conversation came about the state that brings initiative on basically focusing more on the residents and actually bringing in more people within the city to actually live and grow and actually turn Harrisburg into a destination. That's a real big goal from being from the city of Harrisburg, and a lot of you are too, so you already know how it is. Goals for this coming year, with the collaboration of a lot of area, local, and businesses, building relationships as far as like Temple University, Harrisburg University, SBA, SBDC. We have quite a few things coming up in the future year. Also doing some collaborations with the Harrisburg School District as well. Small business events, resource events, something actually more things that bring the community together and actually work together as one versus being working in silos. Again, being from the city, and a lot of you all know how it is as well. We need to come together more as one community versus basically doing everything separate. We can all work together, bring all these resources together. That way we can actually do more things for the people of Harrisburg who actually need these sources as well. I think I mentioned this earlier, micro loan programs for small businesses. It's another thing that's coming in the works for next year. And also a business incubator, preferably for small businesses. Also, we're looking at food incubator as well. Restaurant incubator, that's another thing with a lot of people who actually have an issue, who actually want to start restaurants and other small businesses as well. Again, just trying to funnel more things in. I know a lot of people look at Lancaster as a good model as far as like how small business grows. The only thing with Lancaster is Lancaster's capital. So you look at other areas as far as like Raleigh, North Carolina. Raleigh, North Carolina took that initiative and actually built that into a small business incubator for more people to come in. Again, they took the focus off of basically state, and they have another protocol they have to go around is actually college students. So they took that and basically funneled everything to bring more residents into the area. Bringing in old money, bringing in revenue as far as with investors from their local areas.
that's how we can actually probably get the city to grow. But again, we have to work together.
Thank you very much for that information. I'm going to open it up to my colleagues for any questions or comments. I'm going to start with Councilman Rodriguez.
I may have some that come to me as we go further, but I'm familiar with what Director Graves does in the department, and I appreciate you guys joining us this evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels. Councilman Mattson. Oh, I'm at Majors. Councilman Majors, yes.
I was like, okay.
Try to switch it up, see if anyone was paying attention. Councilman Majors.
Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Grace, for your on your goals. I think you're speaking the language of a lot of Harrisburg residents on what your goals are, you know, as we're coming out of the height of the pandemic, and you know, the city's in desperate need of business revitalization and trying to address a lot of those needs there. So I think you have a lot of lofty goals, and anything we can do as council in our community can do to assist you, I think we will do. I think that's the first question I have, just in terms of how the budget is, the position controls are presented to us. There's a dramatic reduction in the director position in terms of how it's being funded. So can you just talk about how the funding is going to be, the funding for that position is going to be done in 2023?
Sure. So as proposed, the director position, most of that salary actually comes out of DBHD. So only a portion would be coming from business development. So that's why there's such a drastic reduction. Last year, there were 2 employees, both of their salaries and all of their benefits were coming out of business development. Whereas this year, most of mine is coming out of DBHD. All of Mr. Graves's would be coming out of business development.
Okay. All right. Thank you. But then, so then in terms of the rest of the budget, there are no further questions.
And just for clarification, the DBHD funding is all federal dollars. So
Understood
that is
yep.
not from any
Yeah, it's not-
taxpayers.
Right, right.
Correct.
It's all federal. It's not-
Correct.
Okay. No further questions right now. Thank you, Chair Green.
Thank you. President Bowers.
I don't have any budgetary questions. Thank you.
Now, Councilman Mattson.
So excited to skip the line. Just one question for me. Thank you for your overview. What we saw in the previous presentation, there's an uptick in interest in starting small businesses in the city. What have you seen people that are looking to start a small business struggle with, from application, licensors, things like that? And then what is the budget doing to help with those issues?
Well, that's an easy question. Lack of information. That's one. That's like really the whole answer in itself. This is lack of information on how to actually start a business, how to, what paperwork you need, where to go, what funding sources you have. Sometimes there may not be funding sources for what they need. And also on the business owners end is lack of information on there, especially not business plans, or basically where they're going to actually, how to start their business. So I don't want to sound like a dream killer. Somebody called me a dream killer. You heard that. So it's not that at all. It's, if you don't have an actual plan or a business plan when you're actually starting a business, and you come to someone like me, or you come to some individual that's in an entity, and basically you're looking for grant money, which is free money. The thing is, if you don't come with any kind of paperwork or anything, actual plan, you don't have an actual leg to stand on if we do deny. So if you have everything in place and in land, you can actually come back and say, hey, and actually ask questions about what is X, Y, and Z. So that's basically, in a nutshell, there's no, like, basically more information is basically needed, more outreach, more marketing. That's why, for the most part, is collaborating with certain individuals as far as SBA, SBDC, and actual individuals around within the area to actually push these initiatives, to actually show that you do need more information. That's the key.
So I hear you on some of the issues. So how does the budget address those?
Our budget, as far as like with us, I know we have a pretty small budget. We're dealing with a lot of with marketing tools. Basically trying to niche any way I can to actually push as far as like visual paperwork or any kind of postcards or anything, just basically any kind of marketing tools. I like from I am a graphic designer, so I basically cut a lot of stuff in half, so I can do a lot of things myself. Like the parts I use is printing. So that's where basically that comes into effect. Social media, anything like that, we're actually working on an actual separate website, and it's mentioned that either a separate website for economic development that will actually focus on more aspects as far as starting a small business, more projects that are going on in the city. That is feature coming within the next month or so. So
Is there any potential to collaborate with the communications department a little bit more?
yes, it is. Well, I collaborate with the communications department a lot. So
Okay.
yeah.
Very good. That was it for me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ross.
Thank you. Good evening. Sorry, I wanted to see if it was on. I couldn't find the light on my papers. But thank you for joining us this evening. And you know, I love the idea of the business hub. I think I was one of those aspiring people trying to start a business. And the first thing is a business plan. And I just had no idea. And I kind of gave up because I couldn't get any help with it. So I think that is a big piece that people are having trouble with, because that's like the first piece. And like you said, they'll come in and it's like, well, you don't even have a business plan. It's like, no, I don't know where to start. So I look forward to some type of business hub and like more information, because we have tons of people in Harrisburg. I think Harrisburg is so unique with how many businesses people want to start, and they're good ones. You know, they just don't know how to do it. And I can just see us going so far with us starting those businesses. So I look forward to that. My only question was, can we get a Whole Foods?
Well, you're not the only person to ask me. So be honest with you, it's just from having a lot of talks, it's just depicted on the numbers as far as what we can push out revenue wise to support a grocery store. And from a previous meeting that we had, we just for one area in itself, we have the spinach to actually push probably multiple grocery stores in one area. So I'm not going to go into specific numbers and who we actually talk with, but it's a possibility. The thing is, people need to take a chance on growth in the city. That's basically the main thing.
Yeah.
Basically trying to show them exactly you can actually grow here. And again, like I said earlier, growth through the grocery store would help with walkability, would help with a lot of things, not just with small business, but also help with a neighborhood and actually bring a community up. So there are a lot of people out here who don't have the means and the ways or the money to actually go to the grocery store every week or every 2 weeks. So if you have a family member if you have a family that you're supporting of, maybe I just flow a number three or four people, and you only have like $100 a week to support a family, and maybe you don't have a car, and we already know how the transportation resources here are in the city. So you're going to be using maybe $20 or so to basically rip around and basically go back and forth to actually outsource and get these groceries. And that basically takes $20 out of basically the mouths of your families. So that's the main goal, is basically putting in, we have the local bodegas and so forth, but in the same sense, you still need that big major support to actually help support the families and neighborhoods, and also can help support those local bodegas to actually get their own resources and actually fresh fruits and services who can't get to where they need to go.
Like you said, we only have one major grocery store.
Yeah.
So, and it's not close for everybody.
It's not close for everybody.
Majority of our city, it's not close.
No, it's not.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Well, I look forward to seeing it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, thank you very much. Thank you for the work you do. Thank you for the information you provided. I look forward to seeing some of those goals come to fruition this year. And we're always here to help if you need any help from us.
No problem at all. And I just want to say one thing in closing. It's one thing I forgot, because I mentioned this to you, passing each other in closing, is basically zoning. I know there are a lot of areas where there could be some help as far as with mixed use. And that also is a way to kill two birds with one stone with housing and resources and services. So again, that could be a talk that we could probably have on the table about zoning preferences and where things could get changed in certain areas. So just to help out the neighborhoods and communities.
Thank you. I definitely agree with that. All right, the next item on our agenda is the Department of Building and Housing. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself, going over your department, what you guys do, some of your accomplishments this year, and then some of your goals for next year.
Absolutely. So I am Denise Hill. I am the Director of Building and Housing Development and also the Director of Economic Development. On the DBHD side, as you know, our annual action plan is done in July. So that our actual numbers were on a federal fiscal year of October 1 to September 30, but just wanted to come before you and talk about overview, accomplishments, and goals as it relates to the city as a whole. Overview of the department. DBHD administers the HUD funding for the city. We accept and allocate and administer Community Development Block Grant, which is CDBG, Emergency Solutions Grant or ESG, Home Development, and now the Home ARP, which is due to COVID. So that's an additional 1.75 million that was given to help with homelessness providers in the city due to COVID. We also administer the lead hazard reduction program. So that is a 3.5-year grant. That was $5.6 million administered over 3.5 years. So overall, annually dividing the lead program out, my budget is about $5.5 million across all of those funding streams. Some of the accomplishments of last year, as you may recall, we got additional CDBG CV money, so that's Community Development Block Grant, COVID money, and we administered $1 million in rent relief, and that covered rent, mortgage, and essential utilities to residents of the city of Harrisburg during the moratorium and to make sure that they were not evicted during the pandemic. We also administered $500,000 in the small business assistance program that went to small businesses that were shut down and were negatively impacted due to COVID and the pandemic. Currently, we are at about 55% of the lead program homes being completed. So that's 126 out of the 230 target. That's significant because no work was able to be done for almost a year in the lead program. And we are one of the ones that are leading in the state as far as still getting homes completed and starting our program back up. So I'm super proud. And then also, you've all heard me say before, we had such a positive monitoring this last year. So we had 0 findings, 0 concerns from HUD, whom we report to. Right now, we are wrapping up our 2021 fiscal year or program year CAPER, which is our annual report that we give on ESG. So that's actually due December 28th. So since our federal fiscal year just ended September 30th, we're wrapping up all of the data for that. And then just 3 goals that I wanted to highlight tonight is the first one is to improve timeliness as set by HUD. So HUD has a formula that all the money that is given, it needs to be spent within a certain time frame and at a certain rate. So that was waived the last 2 years because of COVID, but it is my goal to get back on top of that. The reason why everyone nationally fell behind is because those additional COVID funds were given. So everybody was spending down the CV funds before they were touching the regular entitlement funds. And then also increase education and awareness. Basically, the 2 things that I want to focus on is what does DBHD do and what does DBHD not do? So a lot of times we have a lot of people that come in with questions, needs, concerns, and we're either outsourcing or we're educating on the fly or like on an individual basis. So making sure that we are doing a better job of getting information out about how we can help. through our HRP program, our lead safe program, all of the things that we provide in the department. And then lastly, to diversify the subrecipient list. So as it relates to ESG and CDBG, a lot of the same organizations are passing the application, so they're able to get through. So they are the ones that are able to receive the federal funds and deal with the regulations on the back end. So with this education and awareness, we will be helping smaller and newer nonprofit organizations build their capacity to be able to take these funds so that they are also able to not only apply and receive CDBG and ESG funding, but operate and administer it with fidelity. And with that, I'll field any questions.
Thank you. If you could just go over the questions that were previously asked by council, if you could just read the responses as well.
Certainly. So the first question was, what is the department's diversity complement? Right now, there is a staff of 11. There are 7 African Americans, 2 Hispanics, 2 white, 8 women, and 3 men on the team. And then, does anyone in the department speak Spanish? We have 2 employees that are fluent in Spanish, both speaking and writing. And for the lead program, what is the status of the lead program? The lead program is active and the current grant expires March 2023. An extension will be requested. If it is granted, the current grant contracts will expire September of 2023, and applications for new contracts should be available from HUD in July, and that will cover 2024 to 2027. How many families have been served through this program? As I aforementioned, that's 126 in the lead program. And have we met our benchmarks? No. COVID and or construction costs and delays halted work for several months. Since this was the case for lead programs all across the nation, initial benchmarks have been waived and extensions have been encouraged by HUD. With that said, the City of Harrisburg lead program remains a top performer in the state with a percentage of over 50% of the target number completed. And that target number is 230. On the home development program, what is the status? The home development program is also active. There are 4 projects in varying degrees of progress. The YMC Cornerstone, that's 4 homes for sale on Woodbine Street. Tri-County Mount Pleasant, 3 homes for sale on Swadera Street. Bethel Village is proposed a high-rise apartments on 6th Street for senior citizens. And then TLC Cornerstone Project is affordable housing apartments, 49 units on like 15th and Regina. The homes for sale, because home development money will be used, they must be purchased by a low to moderate income individual. So they do have to be income eligible in order to purchase those homes. And then all of the projects do need to remain affordable for a time period of 30 years with home development funding. Under home, how many families have been served through this program? 0 currently, and that's just because construction is not completed on any of the projects. So no families have yet moved into the homes. And then have we met our benchmarks? I listed NA, but yes, in the sense that more affordable housing is being created within the city and the funds have been allocated to eligible developers. However, the benchmark cannot be quantified until completion and sale and leasing begins. Were any local businesses contracted through this program? Yes, the YMCA is using a local Harrisburg-based contractor to build the homes. And were any minority-owned or women-owned businesses contracted through this program? Again, yes, both TLC Workforce Development and RB Development, who is the lead on the Bethel Village project, they are both minority-owned enterprises.
Thank you very much. Sure. I'm going to start by opening it up to my colleagues for questions. I'm going to start to my far left with Councilman Rodriguez.
Thank you, Chair Green. My only question was in regards to salary, and you already covered that as far as the federal funding. I know during February, it was a big toss up how that was gonna get divvied out, but you've already clarified that for me, so thank you for being here. Thank you, Chair Green.
Thank you. Councilwoman Daniels.
The only question, it's not really relevant to this budget, but do you have a sense of when the CDBG allocations are going to come down for this fiscal year?
Yes, I will actually be submitting those. They were reviewed by the mayor and they'll be going over to the Law Bureau early next week, if not by then. Only reason why it's not this week, I'm actually off the rest of this week, so.
And that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Majors.
Thank you. Appreciate the update. No questions at this time. Yeah, the only question I had were around the lead program, but you did answer those here. So thank you.
Thank you. President Bowers.
Yes, thank you. Good evening. Thank you for responding to the questions that were submitted. I do have, I guess, a follow-up question regarding the home development program. So 4 projects total, 2 are under construction, and then the Bethel Village project they're working on to close the funding gap. But what about TLC? What's holding that up?
So they're working with PHFA on the tax credits. They're not experiencing, to my knowledge, they're not experiencing quite the funding gap as some of the other projects.
Okay.
But everyone is, because the construction costs and it changes day by day. So everybody is experiencing some, it's just not as significant as the other.
Okay. Okay, thanks for clarifying.
Sure.
Thank you. Councilman Madsen.
No questions for me. You know, in the past, this department always gave us a little bit of concern, issues with the compliance. So just thrilled to hear that we're in compliance. Staff are able to keep up with the workload. Thank you.
And if I could just add to that, much to the chagrin of some of our subrecipients, there's been a switch where the monitoring, compliance, due diligence is done on the front end. So that's why there's such a big push on all of the funding being reimbursable to the subrecipients. And again, that's a big push in the goals that I was talking about education and awareness, is helping them to understand, but also work within our procurement and check, because essentially they have to spend the money and then they can wait, 4 to 6 weeks to get the money back. So just working with them, but it does keep us in a much better position with HUD, which is what we want.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's a critical change.
Yes.
That was, I think a lot of our subrecipients had good intentions.
Yeah, absolutely.
They just simply couldn't keep up with the compliance end.
Yes. And it's
Hard.
a different animal when dealing with federal funds. So
Yeah.
just making sure that my team stays sane, but at the same time, again, making sure that they can handle that with fidelity as far as the subrecipients.
Very good. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Councilwoman Rawls.
Thank you, Chair Green. Good evening. Thank you for
evening.
coming. And congratulations with your success with the lead program and all the other successes you're having within your department. I just have one question.
Sure.
With the affordable housing that is going up, especially the houses that you say have to be purchased by certain parameters, how is that being advertised?
So
How will it be advertised?
those will actually be advertised through the organizations that are building them. So we will work in partnership, but the Mount Pleasant homes on 15th and Swadera, 2 of the 3 of those are already, they have offers
Okay.
on them. So TLC, Tri-County Housing Development Corporation, they are responsible for the advertising of that.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I don't really have any questions for you. I guess kind of just one kind of comment question. for you, not related to building and housing, kind of as your role as the Director of Community and Economic Development.
Mhm.
I know last year when you were here, or earlier this year, or however we want to categorize it, last budget cycle, you kind of talked about some of your goals as far as the Director of Community Economic Development. Do you have any like major goals for this year, or any things that you've accomplished of those goals last year? I know some of it was, I forget the exact phrases, but it was like how to Harrisburg, like how to start a business, how
Yep.
to buy a home, how to,
Yes.
some of those things. So
Yes.
that kind of got me excited. So just kind of wondering how those are going.
Yes, so you want to, so you want
Yes.
to live in Harrisburg, so you want to work in Harrisburg, so you want to start a business. So yes, those are actually in draft form. Just looking to finalize those, but we did kind of some branding and marketing to make them look similar across the booklets, but still different by category. So just finalizing those and getting them over to the administration for review.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
That's all I had. Thank you for being here tonight. Thank you for the information, and thank you for the work that you do. I think that wraps it up for you.
Awesome. Have a good night.
You as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
And next, last but not least, looks like we have general expenses and transfers.
Yeah, Mr. Brian McCutcheon will be reporting.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Just give me a moment as projector wakes up here. Take off Mike's PowerPoint, which was really, he always does a great job. Okay, very good. Thank you for your patience there. Good evening again, City Council members. Thank you, President Bowers, Chair Green, for the opportunity to do an overview this evening. I guess I'm the anchor man this evening. This is the last section. What I'm going to go over relates to, in your budget book, I believe it's in the general expenses and transfers tab. There's two main schedules. I'll hit general expenses first. This schedule shows, if I may, down at the bottom, I'll go to the totals. Reflecting here, our original budget for 2022, the 12.9 million, and right next to it, the adjusted budget as to where we are currently, the 15.5. And how we got there is mainly two lines, which include our medical expense, the very top line. There was an increase of 1.8 million in budget. And also the liability settlement claims line, where we went from 250,000 to $1,050,000, an $800,000 increase in budget. Those two lines are reflecting a release of pent-up claims relative to medical and also of a litigation settlement nature during the year. Driven by, fueled by the pandemic on the medical side, of course, fueled by the pandemic and inflationary cost. And also on the litigation side, when we went from 250 to $1,050,000, claims that had been stalled during the pandemic were released into current year 2022. If you look at the far right column for 2023 proposed budget, what I added some highlights here just to reflect what we've proposed for the year, the bottom line of 16.4. And what is in yellow are the new items for this coming year that we anticipate. This first item, the new MMO for the non-uniform plan, is new in the sense that the city really hasn't, in very recent times, maybe not even ever, has had a minimum municipal obligation for the non-uniform pension plan. And PMRS does the calculation every year where we have to determine that as the end of September. And they supply us with the calculation worksheets that we compute. The service cost rate has increased over the years. It has been anywhere between 9 and 9.9%. And for 2023, they calced it out to an increase rate of over 16%. And primarily due to more administration expenses occurring for more retirees, and also the net pension asset compared to the liability, the gap, which used to be very strong, has shrunk quite significantly. So that has an effect on the service cost rate. The total MMO is actually over 1 million. You're seeing 745,000 here because we allocate part of this to the neighborhood services fund. This is the general fund that we're looking at this evening, because the neighborhood service fund shares in non-uniform employees when it comes to personnel costs. The other significant items to note in yellow, these two items total to 2 million for next year, which involves the underway incinerator litigation matter. We broke it down between legal and other professional, where other professional is more of the associated administrative costs that go to retrieving and examining the documents, making them available for the legal staff and attorneys review. This 2 million, by the way, though, is in the budget, but the source of funding it is fund balance. There's a reasonableness to that in the sense that it's an incinerator. The incinerator matter, hopefully it will prove to benefit the city from what happened so long ago, and will produce benefits to the city. So it similar to when you're satisfying debt to get the debt cleared away. It appears to be a good item for funding with our fund balance. The other newer item, it's under grant distributions to local units. It's not the full 329,000 that's there. That makeup of that amount is 150,000 to continue the after 5 parking program with standard parking. But the remaining piece of this relates to funding for the Harrisburg Redevelopment Authority, which is a new item for the general funds budget. The items in green, I just wanted to note here, these are increases based on premiums that the city recently renewed for its various insurance coverages. And again, there's effect from various items. You can work in the pandemic, but you can work in more economic and security factors, where our overall coverages compared to last year in premium were increased by 28%. And that's a range. Some policies maybe went up 10%. Cyber, for example, was a big hit. That was an increase in premium of 37%. But overall, it's about a 28% increase. So to wrap this up as a comparison, again, in general expenses, we're budgeting, the budget request is 16.4 million. If you back off all those new items that I just went through, and including the increase in insurance coverage for the next year, as a comparison for to get a sense of this, that would reduce the total down to 13.3 million, which is very reasonable in comparison to the 12.9 million that we originally budgeted for 2022. That's just a point of reconciliation to show some comparativeness there.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this specific topic? Seeing none, thank you. You can continue on.
Okay.
As far as the HRA funding, how much are we looking to fund towards HRA?
That's of that total, it's $179,000.
Okay. Mr. Majors, Councilman Majors.
Yeah, thank you. And just for the After 5 program, are the other partners still participating, or are we?
To my knowledge, yes, they are.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, all right. All right, the next tab is not as extensive and is very straightforward. Again, it's part of your budget book under that tab, that same tab. What I did though, I added a little supporting detail. I apologize that I did not originally include this breakdown. Let me just start with the capital projects fund. That's not debt. That's there's an anticipated need next year to keep the State Streets and Roads project rolling along. And the ask there was actually, it was 1.75 million. But there is still $300,000 left on a applicable grant from PennDOT that we would want to utilize and bring in. So the balance would fall to the general fund to help that project to its completion or further it along at least into next year. Debt service. And again, this is a favorable presentation in the sense you're not seeing the GO debt from prior years. So mainly there's three items that comprise that 5.4 million. The city's minimum contribution on the HRA revenue bonds. That's the Verizon / Commonwealth Tower bonds. The M&T Bank payee for that streetlight LED upgrade conversion project. This is the final year to pay off that particular debt. We do quarterly payments on that, so this is 3 quarters worth. So this time next year, that debt will be fully satisfied. And of course, we all know what this one is. The bond insurer forbearance liability. This is just reflecting the scheduled payments with AMBAC as a result of the GO debt going away last year. That this year coming up is when the new payments kick in. And we have it in the budget despite what we've been through recently to plan for the $12 million payment we have coming up. Actually, it's coming up due next week. So the GO debt, back up to the total, you can see the comparison to last year of over 10 million versus 5.4 this year for 2023. And the geo debt is, you may recall, that's always been 8.675 million every year. But the reason you don't have that much of a difference is because of the offset of the AMBAC debt, the regularly scheduled debt for next year of the 3.8 million. So that's just it's quick, but that's because that's a good sign. We don't have too much debt to talk about, but that's the interfund transfer section. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for that presentation and information. I think that pretty much wraps up the budget for us. Are there any other questions or comments from my colleagues or anything the administration wanted to add?
I just wanted to say thank you to the team for coming tonight. Thank you, Brian, for the presentation.
Chair Green, the finance team wants to thank you and the members of council for being so diligent and persevering and for providing excellent questions that really helped substantiate the recommendations within the mayor's budget. Thank you again.
Thank you, and thank your team for all the hard work for getting this together, for being here to answer any questions, as well as for helping the departments through the process, and just keeping the public aware of what was going on throughout the year. I think that was really important and helped when it comes to this budget season. I will say that we do have a meeting scheduled for Wednesday and Thursday of this week. There will be no need for those meetings since we have made our way through the budget, unless any council members feel that it's more information they'd like to receive publicly that we haven't received via email or anything. If so, please speak now or forever hold your peace until next Tuesday.
Don't need necessarily for new meetings, but just in terms of next steps, like in terms of, any amendments or.
Yes, I was getting to that part next. So if there are any potential amendments that council members would like to bring forth for discussion, feel free to email them to me and the city council staff, and we will distribute a list to everyone of potential amendments. Obviously, they cannot be discussed in a group setting until next Tuesday, unless we would have another meeting. So if you could have those amendments, I would say by Friday morning, since we don't have a meeting tomorrow or Thursday, hopefully we can take some of that time to craft those and get them emailed to the city staff and myself, so that they can then be shared with everyone and discussed on Tuesday.
And then the rule, if, I don't know, maybe solicitor or you chair, the rule in terms of the movement of funds, can money be moved across budget units, or everything, any amendment would have to be changed within that individual department? So for instance, say if you wanted to move money from one department to another, could you do that, or everything would still have to stay within the individual department? I just don't recall off the top of my head.
I'm going to leave it to the solicitor, but I think if it's in the general fund, you can, but I'll leave that to the solicitor.
Well, thank you. But the answer is, it depends, like most things. The language in the law is movements between individual items. It's all general fund tax dollars, unless you're moving to something that is funded by something else. So, but there's various ways to interpret that individual item. It's much easier to move money within a department that it's a very small percentage because their personnel item, for example, is, $16 million. It's very hard to move under the percentage rules if the department has two people in it. Like then you're in that risk of having to re-advertise. So we're happy to work with the budget chair to work out motions in terms of the language of it. And if there's options that make the same thing able to be happened in a mechanically way without having a new set of hearings 10 days later, we would happy to work with that. We did a primer for the council, our office in February. We're happy to update that because that really had to go with the amended budget process versus this process, but many of the rules are the same. You know, many of the rules for what can be moved and can't be moved are the same.
All right, thank you. Yes, if you could get us an updated version of that primer, that would be appreciated. As well as any rules we need to be aware of as far as like the percentage movement, things like that. Just so that we have it to keep cognizant of. And then also I was asked by a council member if the legal department could provide us with a legal opinion of of approving unfunded positions in the budget. If you could just provide something in writing, a legal opinion about approving positions in the budget without providing the funds for those positions in the budget.
You're saying the adding in back to the position for position control. Like you sort of asked
So-
earlier today. So if you added a position to a department that isn't there right now, the example you used earlier was CSA. You put that back in, or you put a supervisor back in that used to be there, assuming one was used to be there. You can always add something that is not there in the sense that it doesn't have a financial impact. Therefore, you're not in any percentage world, right? It just isn't there. You haven't
I
made
think
any
it was-
percentage move.
Sorry. I think it was more looking at if we would add a CSA position to the budget and not fund it.
We're saying the same thing.
Okay, all right.
We're saying the exact same thing. Because you're not changing any financials, the percentage issues don't kick in. The question to be made is whether that is simply something that can be done when you do it, or if it's a technical amendment, and there's not really an answer to this because it hadn't come up before, that when they're doing technical amendments, they can simply add on, if council and the mayor's office agrees, they'll add them in as a technical amendment that doesn't require further approval, basically to replace it. If it's a brand new position that never existed, it would have to be voted on and done. And this body has previously voted for a director position being put back in that did not get funded. And that was done during the budget process. That was, I think, the former economic development director's position was voted on to be added back in. That was an amendment made at the time of approval.
All right. If we could just get something in writing,
Sure.
I would appreciate it. Any other questions or comments from my colleagues? Seeing none, I will turn this back over to President Bowers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice President Green. At this time, we will open the floor for public comment. Don't know if we'll receive any, but I'd still like to go through this practice. And I did want to clarify, last week there was a question related to the public comment email address. So we have confirmed that the email account is active, but they have not received any emails. So just for everyone's reference, you can provide public comment via email. Okay. Please state your name, your address. If you don't feel comfortable stating your address, please share the vicinity in which you live. You have 2 minutes to share your comment. Mr. Parker will serve as our timekeeper. Is there anyone to my right that would like to offer public comment? Seeing and hearing no one. Anyone in the middle section? Seeing and hearing no one. Anyone to my left? Seeing and hearing no one. I would just like to take this opportunity to thank Vice President Green and for her leadership during our expedited budget hearing process. So thank you for that. Council members, please don't forget, if you have amendments, please share them with Vice President Green and our staff by Friday morning so that we can move forward in a timely manner next Tuesday. The time is 9:02 p.m. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Is there a second? Thank you. We stand adjourned.
Yes, sir. You have to put a cancellation notice on the door.